Morning, everybody. I'd like to call the regularly scheduled Manatee County Planning Commission for March 12th to order. If you all would please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Meyer,
Yes, sir.
are there any changes?
There are, Mr. Chair, to item number 2, which is PDR-14-19, paren G, which is DTS number 201-40227. This is Twin Rivers Phases 4C and 5. There's a revised paragraph in the background and discussion in the attached memo, and there are a number of public comment letters attached. Item number 4, which is PDW-01-01, paren P, paren R, which is DTS number 201-30126, Parrot Cove Marina, a revised stipulation number A3 and added stipulation number A8, and amended recommended motion. And then for item number 5, which is ordinance 15-14, formerly known as 14-45, Robinson Gateway DRI number 29, additional language inserted in the development order, section 5A, paren 1 per the county attorney. In addition, we had a late withdrawal of item number 3, and a letter from the attorney should be passed down to the members of the board. And that's it for changes, sir.
Okay, so item number 3 has been pulled from the regular agenda.
Yes,
and
sir.
will be heard at a later date. Possibly.
Actually, they've withdrawn it with no future date. They will come back when they're ready, they
So
said.
noted, so noted. Thank you. Ms. Shank, are there any changes?
No changes, sir.
Thank you. Commissioners, any concerns or modifications requested of the agenda? Seeing none, we'll move forward. The next item on the agenda is the minutes.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Rhodes.
I move to make approval of the minutes of February 12, 2015.
Thank you.
Second.
Mr. Delesline, second the amendment. Thank you very much. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes unanimously. All right, the next item on the agenda are citizen comments. These are comments that are not related to the items on the agenda, just something that you wish to bring before the commission, but it's not relative to anything that's being heard today. Are there anybody in the audience who wishes to make citizens' comments? Seeing none, we're going to move to the next item on the agenda. Clerk's office will now establish the rules for a process.
Good morning. The applicant is entitled to 15 minutes for presentation and 5 minutes for rebuttal. Individuals may speak for 3 minutes, and anyone representing a group or an organization of 5 or more members may speak for 10 minutes. If you represent a group, please state the group you represent and provide written authority to speak on behalf of the group. When you step to the podium, please state your name and whether or not you've been sworn. Anyone at this time wishing to address this planning commission, please stand while I administer the oath. Anyone sure they're still seated, that you're not going to speak? Because you have to be sworn in order to speak. Okay. Do you swear or affirm that the factual statements and factual representations which you're about to present to this board will be truthful and accurate?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we're going to move on to the consent agenda. There's one item on the consent agenda. Mr. Meyer, would you please read this item into the record, please?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Item number 2, which is PDR-14-19, paren G, which is DTS number 201402227, Twin Rivers Phase 4C and 5, approving a general development plan to increase the number of lots for single-family detached residences from 33 to 89 in Phase 4C and to and 191 to 487 in Phase 5 of the Twin Rivers subdivision for a maximum overall subdivision total of 880 lots for single-family detached residences on 1,218 plus or minus acres, and retaining the proposal for residential support uses such as church, daycare, and temporary project sales office. The subject properties are on the south side of Golf Course Road within Twin Rivers subdivision, approximately 1 mile from the intersection of Rye Road Parish. The site is zoned PDR and PDR-CH, which are planned development residential in the Coastal High Hazard Overlay District.
Thank you very much. All right. We have several members of the public who have signed up to speak on this matter. I'm going to call your name. If you would, please step up to the microphone, and if you would, state your name and that you've been sworn. First up is Mr. Ron McClure.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Mr. Meyer.
we probably should have a presentation from staff and the applicant first.
On consent?
Well, on the item.
Okay. It's a consent item. Typically, are we going to pull it from consent?
Well, if we've got testimony, we probably should.
Mr. Chair, I
All right,
recommend pulling from consent.
All right, Mr. McClure, we're going to change gears here, sir. So if you would take your seat, you'll have an opportunity in a few minutes. All right, the item's being pulled from consent at the request of Commissioner Bauer. So we're gonna go into regular presentation with regard to this item. So the item's already been read into the record. So first of all, have any of the commissioners have had any ex parte communications regarding this project? Seeing none, okay, we're going to move forward. Introduction by the staff, please.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Chairman. I am Stephanie Moreland, and I have been sworn. I have some another comment that came in this morning, public comment.
Okay,
that I'm
thank
gonna
you.
pass.
Thank you.
The applicant is here, and we're going to ask them to come forward and give their presentation first, and then staff will follow.
Thank you, Ms. Moreland. Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Caleb Grimes, and I have been sworn. Pleasure to be here today. I'm representing Gamble Creek LC, and with us from Gamble Creek LC is Mr. Larry Durso. Some of you on the board, everybody's a little too new. Larry's been doing things here in the county for many, many years. ZNS Engineering is the engineering company with this project, and Jeb Mulock is here with that. And my planner, Dorinda Marvin, is here and is going to give a little more of the presentation in just a minute. I'd like to give you just a little bit of a history of this project. This is Twin River. And Twin Rivers is a project that originally began many years ago, and it was a 1,400-acre site. It was a large site out on Golf Course Road, and it was, and do we have that aerial that we can show? Yeah, it's trying, it's not clicking. There. I'll go back. If you see on the screen, this is an aerial. I can get this little thing to work. This is Manatee River down in the lower left, coming through and flowing along the bottom of the screen. And this is Gamble Creek that goes up through and goes up to the north, hence Twin River. The site, the original site, consisted of this area all in here down to the river and up to what this is Golf Course Road, if y'all are familiar with Golf Course Road. And then this is Rye Road that comes down and then crosses the river here, the Rye Bridge that I think all of you are familiar with. So that's Rye Road, Golf Course Road, Fort Hamer Road. The new bridge will go right here over the Manatee River. So this is the Manatee River. This area that was well over 1,400 acres consisted of the original Twin River. And it was originally approved, and it was kind of one of those groundbreaking communities because it was the first one out in this area of the county for 550 lots. And it originally consisted of almost 1,450 acres, I think it was. It was well over 1,400 acres. And Gamble Creek, Larry Durso, gave to the county in this area for what is now Twin River Park, or Twin River Preserve, over 200 acres as a preserve, and that was dedicated. County commissioners all showed up for the dedication, and it was a big project that was done. And then there was a conservation area put over more of the lands in this, and so this area now has some trails through it and some blue water area and stuff that was all dedicated by Gamble Creek to Manatee County. The site, as you can see by this aerial, has been partially developed in this area right here. And then the area down here, which consists of Phase 5, and the area in here, which consists of Phase 4C, as you can see, has not yet been developed. So the request today is that this site has a GDP approval. From your staff report, you can see it's from the early 2000s. Has been in place for a long time, and like we often do is we sometimes have to update our GDPs. We are here to make some requested changes to the area that is, again, Phase 5, and if I can get my down here, and Dorinda will go over that a little more fully, and the area 4C right here. I want to discuss for just a minute why we want to do this. Larry Durso came to us to discuss doing this, and one of the reasons I mentioned earlier, his history of development in Manatee County, will lead you to understand why this request is coming in and what it's based on. Larry was the developer of Braden Woods. I think all of you know Braden Woods, and in fact Braden Oaks before that. Braden Woods was also a kind of a groundbreaking project, first one really east of I-75. And that was later followed by River Club, which is adjacent to Braden Woods. It's the golf course community that is adjacent there too. All of those actually predated Lakewood Ranch. He later developed Mill Creek. And I don't think anybody here will remember, but Mill Creek was developed under the cluster provisions of our Land Development Code, which we no longer have anymore. But that was one of the first times that was used out in Mill Creek, of course, out on State Road 64. And then he's done Twin River. And what we have found is that our comp plan is pretty accurate when it says that for strong communities, you have to have a variety of housing types, a variety of product types. We found that over the time that if everything is exactly the same, it doesn't lead to your stronger communities with a mix of different kind of people that are living there with different interests. The home values tend to not, you compete against yourself if you have everything exactly the same as opposed to having some different types of product types. And then we also have found over time that everyone doesn't want very large yards. This particular Twin River has home sites ranging from 20,000 to 50,000 square feet. They're very, very large homes, large yards, a lot to care for. And he also found that as projects mature, when the projects mature, people who are living there that maybe lived there with their children are gone, they're empty nesters, want to downsize, but they want to live in the same project. They want to be a part of the same community they've been in for a long, long time. And if there's not a different project, a different product type, then it doesn't work. Following 6 years of the downturn in the market is, is coming back, and we are finding that people, and you're seeing this very regularly, don't want to have the very large yards to take care of. A good example of that was River Club that was developed, has sections with very, very large areas, and then it has areas with smaller 50-foot product, which is what we're asking for in part here. And that with that different product type, you have neighborhoods within a community, and you develop very strong communities, very, very successful. Did that also in Braden Woods. Braden Woods originally was developed with 1-acre lots, and then by phase 5 it was changed and used, again, that cluster provision to make smaller lots, so you had a different section in Braden Woods. And so this is what we're here for today, is to update the GDP to allow a different product type in phases 5 and phases 4C. And at this time, I'm going to ask Ms. Marvin from our office, our planner, to go over the details of that. Brenda?
Good morning. For the record, Dorinda Marvin with Grimes, Goebel, Grimes, Hawkins, Gladfelter, and Galvano. I'm a planner in that firm, and I have been sworn. I'm going to talk to you in a little more detail about the numbers. Caleb has talked to you a lot this morning about the concept. And as we said, this is a modification to an approved general development plan. There's no change in the zoning that's requested. There's no change in the approved land uses. This will all still be single-family detached. But we're requesting today approval of an alternative plan. And the phases that Caleb showed you, 4C and 5, are phases that the developer actually already has construction plan approval and could come in and build. But what he has found in this time period is there's not a market for those larger lots. And so we are looking at what has occurred in this area. And your planners often provide in your staff report, you will see that table with approved developments in the surrounding area. And if you look at that, what you'll find is that since 2005, the development that has occurred in this surrounding area has all been in the range of 2 to 3 dwelling units per acre. The current approval for Twin Rivers is 0.48 dwelling units per acre. So the direction to the team was to provide an alternative, but to maintain the character of this existing project. And they were looking for an opportunity to provide, homes to a different subset of the market. And as Caleb discussed and is also provided in your staff report, there's a comprehensive plan policy, 2.9.1.4, that Ms. Moreland has used in support of our project, that we are encouraged to provide a variety of sizes within a community. So the current approval on the 1,218 acres, 550 units originally approved, 304 of those are platted. In that current approval, there's already a variety of lot sizes approved. They're 20,000, 40,000, and 50,000. I will share with you that the majority of those did develop more in the range of the 20,000. The alternative plan would allow up to a total of 880 units, still resulting in a density of less than 1. It's 0.77 DUs per acre, in an open space of 60%. This is the alternative plan, and the reason I want to show you this, and I'll provide you some close-ups, is if you'll see the areas that are in the different shades of yellow. Those are the 2 phases for which we are requesting the alternative plan. And I want to talk to you about what those colors represent. And then I'll zoom in for you, because I know it's a little bit hard on this plan, but when you have a project of this size, it's a little difficult to show. In the northern area, you'll see 2 different colors of yellow. And as I said, the direction to us was to maintain the character of this project. It was very important for us to consider the residents who are currently living in Twin Rivers and the adjacent lots, as well as their visual perspective as they're traveling through the community. So there are 7 lots that you see in yellow. Let's see if I can point that to you. Right in here. And those are larger lots that will maintain the same size of Twin River. Those are the 50,000. As you travel through, you see this isolated area, this pocket. Those are the smaller lots, which will be the 6,000 square feet. In the southern portion, as you come down Twin Rivers Trail to lead you to the recreation facility along the river, those will be 17,000 square foot lots, so maintaining a similar size to all of the lots along Twin River with isolated areas of the 6,000. And I'll show you those in a little more detail. This is the northern portion of Phase 4C. And again, we have the larger lots here, the similar size in Twin River. You'll travel, and this is a distance of about 2,000 feet. You cross the bridge. And we have the smaller lots here, which are the 6,000. Again, this is the southern portion. The larger lots along Twin River Trail and also in this area here with the 6,000 square foot, as I said, in isolated areas of the community. And so what you have, if you saw your stipulations, a little bit of a different situation. Ms. Moreland and I spent some time trying to think of how to do this. As I said, this property has construction plan approval today to build those phases. It's possible at some time in the near future that could be the market, but we were looking for an alternative. So we have option A plan, which is our current approval, and option B that we could come back in the future, revise those construction plans, and have the alternative layout with the 17,000 square foot and the 6,000 square foot. The stipulations that you have before you today would carry forward with either plan. They have been updated. And I know we have some minor housekeeping items. We have one stipulation that we've worked on with the staff and another one we'd like to present, and I'll have Caleb come back for that.
Thank you, Dorinda. One of the things that you probably gathered with my discussion before is that Larry Durso has a history of working long and hard with his various projects. You've seen some very, very successful ones here in Manatee County that he did. And there's been no change here. He carried this project through the downturn. He's still sticking with it. And in fact, in this particular project, Larry has three children that have homes in Twin River, and he probably won't want me to say this, 8 grandchildren that are there in the project. And so what he did and what he has historically done is he started meeting with the advisory committee of the board of Twin River, met long and hard with them, and then had, I'm sorry, if I can have about 4 minutes at the most.
Please wrap it up, yes.
Worked long and hard with them, and then had 2 community meetings where everybody was given notice of the meeting. Mail-outs were made so that they could come in and discuss with them. And I will tell you that originally the plan was to also have proposed townhomes as another alternative off of the main road that Dorinda explained. And actually committed a community poll with the entire community to see what the interest was in having the townhomes. Also heard concerns about, with additional home sites being approved, that there could be additional cars on Twin River Trail going through, and heard questions about the look and feel of the project and the protection of the amenities and so forth. And so he agreed to several things to assure that the Twin River project was very successful, maintained its look and feel. One was, if you see today, there is no request for townhomes. The request for townhomes was withdrawn and changed. If you will see that the main road that goes north and south, Twin River Trail will maintain the larger home sites so that if anyone is driving down to what we call the Red House, which is a house on the river that was an old house that was preserved and restored on the river, that's area for the recreation, has a boat ramp and a canoe and kayak launch and some things down there. So that if you went along that trail, you would see no difference in the community. He has agreed to a minimum house size in the entire new project of 1,600 square feet. Our approval today allows 1,200 square foot homes, so he's agreed to that with his community, so that even though the lot sizes are smaller, the homes will still be larger. Right now, his deed restrictions would allow 1,500 square feet, so he's actually doing it higher. The maximum number of units will be 880, although original request was more, agreed to do that. But most importantly, there was a concern by the residents raised, and I think you saw it in some of the letters, that there would be the potential of additional traffic on Twin River Trail. If you look at this project, and if I can get back to the aerial here.
Mr. Grimes, we need to wrap up. the
I'm doing it very quickly, but I'm going to give you some things that hopefully will help us for the future
Okay.
with the residents. The project has through it, this is Mulholland Road, and it, are you doing it? Mulholland Road goes through the project. Mulholland Road. It won't work. That's why I like to put things up here. There we go. This is Mulholland Road coming off of Fort Hamer, crosses and goes through the project here. And if you can see at the bottom, right out here is Rye Road. Gamble Creek LC dedicated to the county the right-of-way for the extension of Mulholland Road, which is on our thoroughfare plan, the right-of-way to take Mulholland Road out to Rye Road. It is not planned to be constructed anytime in the future, but as you can see, if this road were constructed, it would give people an alternative and take a lot of the traffic off of the trail. And so we are proposing a stipulation. He met with all the people at the association and agreed that once we end up with over 100 lots more than was originally approved, that road would be constructed. As it is on a thoroughfare plan, it should be eligible for impact fee credits, so we would expect it to receive impact fee credits. So I am going to, if we can, pardon? I'll read it. You can pass it out. A proposed stipulation that says, developer has agreed to and shall construct the extension of Mulholland Road from its current eastern terminus in Twin Rivers 2 eastward to Rye Road prior to approval of the final plat of the 651st lot in Twin River, excluding Twin River 2. Twin River 2 is an adjacent project. Provided Manatee County's agreed to grant impact fee credits in conformance with Section 807 of the Land Development Code for such construction, provided Manatee County's arranged for the mitigation of any required wetland impacts from such construction. Manatee County would have to help do that because it's their property. Manatee owns the right-of-way. So we feel that this will mitigate greatly any additional structures. In fact, one of your letters that you saw in here had that as a suggestion in it, and I'm sorry they didn't know about it. The second one that we have passed out is that B2 is just a typographical correction of something that got left out of B2 that we agreed with staff. Finally, I want to introduce a letter that was sent to you, but for some reason we didn't see it. We got a copy of it. We did not see it in the package. If you could pass that out too. This is a letter, and
Grimes, you need to wrap it up, and we need to move to,
Then I'm done.
okay.
We wanted to introduce this. It was sent to you. It's a letter from Renee Fink, who is on the board. It's explaining everything I just told you. I would like to ask you to read it.
Thank you.
We'll answer any questions now.
We're going to open it up for commissioner questions now, so.
Mr. Grimes, a question. What is an estimated percent of the smaller homes in relation to the larger homes if this proceeds? The 6,000 versus the 17,000 square foot lots.
Let me ask let me get you that number. There are there will be 330 more total lots, but as you can see, many of those will be the larger homes because they're going to be on, so if I can get that number.
Well, okay.
Are you asking for numbers or percentages?
Either one. I'm just trying to get an idea of the number of the smaller homes that seem to be a concern of many people.
The maximum number of smaller homes would be in the two developments out to the side would be 459 of 880 total lots.
Okay, so just a little over half, all right. Other question I have is, should this proceed and ultimately get approval by the Board of County Commissioners, that next day, so to speak, would you be proceeding on option A or would you be proceeding on option B?
Well, if we knew, we wouldn't ask for options. And so I can't answer that right now. We're trying to get the alternatives and then work with what's going on. We would probably start with 4C, not 5.
Please,
Yeah, Larry.
please step up to the microphone, state your name and if you've been sworn.
Thank you. My name is Larry Durso, and I have been sworn. And to try to answer that question, we have engaged ZNS to do the construction plans for a 45-unit section of what would be Phase 5, not 4C, but Phase 5, which is the bigger lots.
The
So
option B.
it's not the patio lots. But we are doing and have been doing under the old construction plans a lot of the initial floodplain compensation work and stuff like that we've been allowed to do under the old plans. But that would work for either way.
A follow-up question to that, I believe Ms. Marvin said that if this were approved, that the construction plans would be amended. Are there currently construction plans approved?
Yes, as she indicated, there are construction plans approved under the old plan.
Right.
What Mr., and I was kind of answering it differently. What Mr. Durso is saying is that they would begin with those manor lots along the trail. That's the 45, so that's the first thing you would see, which is the larger lot, so that you would complete that. And in answer to your question, there are plans approved, and but they've been approved for some time, and they're on hold right now.
So, again, a follow-up question. So we have construction plans that are approved. We're asking for an option. Is there going to be anything in between? Are we going to have a mix of option A and option B, or is this are you strictly asking for one or the other?
The answer is that we expect there will probably be a mix. We will probably, as we go through and as the market demands, we may see that we want more of the larger homes and not all of the smaller homes. So the answer is, and the way the stipulation reads, is that go forward with a preliminary on a part of either one.
Okay.
One thing that's along the line of the same question that I was asked is that it's important to realize that anything that would be any patio home area or smaller home that's the 6,000 square foot lots are all buffered away from anything that would be visual from anybody driving through the community. So the whole community that's living there right now, there will actually be potentially projects closer to them than these phases, because these phases are isolated away from where anybody lives. And then anything that if they were to travel to go down where the boat ramp is or to any of the amenities, the nature trail that's down on the river, they still would not visually see where the patio homes were, because the same type of home site will be built on the main road going down to the other areas. So there's no visual change to anything.
Thank you. Other questions for the applicant?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Horgan?
So we're gonna expect to see that Plan B wouldn't take effect for some time now, till Plan A continues on and the 45 of the larger homes are built. We're generating more homes? Are we generating any more open space?
The project has over 60% open space. And so it's already has 60% open space, and it is not, it is generating some areas of new open space. If I can use this is a, yeah, if we can put this on the,
Yeah.
let me show you one of the things that it changes, a couple of the things. The A has all of these proposed to be platted down all the way to the river. And as you can see, option B takes all of this area and converts it to open space as opposed to being within lots. I don't know the exact numbers because also a little of this area was open space in option A and now would be lots. So in balancing the numbers out, I'm not sure of the exact numbers. And, but there will be a remainder of 60% open space. Also, just so you know, you can't really see it here, but all the way out here to where the rivers converge, that was part of the overall tract and was dedicated to the county, deeded to the county, over 200 acres, and part of it dedicated with as conservation area. So there's I think it's close to 250 acres total that has already been set aside that doesn't even figure in that 60%, but it was all part of what Gamble Creek LC did in developing this site. But the big change is that these areas where they would be plotted to the river would become open space.
Thank you, Mr. Grimes. Are there any other questions? Yes, sir. Mr. Rutledge.
Yes, sir. The connection between Mulholland Road out to Rye Road, is that universally endorsed by the community there?
All right, this is the current Mulholland Road right here, if you can see that. And Mulholland Road comes over to the river from Fort Hamer Road on this side. And actually, Mr. Durso even dedicated some land for the bridge to land here to the county. I think it was it about 6 acres? Larry, I think it was. Yes. And over here, so that Mulholland Road ultimately can be completed. And Gamble Creek LC actually owned a right-of-way that went out to here. I believe it's 84 feet. A right-of-way that went out to Rye Road, which would be about there if you were looking at it. And that right-of-way was dedicated to the county, and since this is on the thoroughfare plan, it's always been planned as an eventual connection. And what Mr. Durso has proposed in the stipulation is to speed that up if there are additional houses built with his project, so that now all of these people that want to go south, that want to go to Bradenton, will have this alternative and take a lot of the traffic off of this roadway. That would not happen without this approval here.
In the stipulation tied to the plat, I'm sorry, what was it, 659th?
651st. Well, there's 550 today, and so if we add more than 100, then
And that is
that
the
would be it.
obligation from
Right.
the applicant.
Right.
Not a
The
hash.
applicant promised it at the community meetings and
Right.
promised it in return for doing this. And we decided to go ahead and not just have it as a promise, but make it a stipulation.
It's appreciated. All right, any other questions for the applicant? Mr. Rutledge?
I just want to finish on the road.
Okay.
So the intention of the road has always been for Mulholland to cut through into Rye. That was always the concept for this?
Yes, Mulholland Road is on our thoroughfare as I believe it's a collector. And it goes from, it's to give a connection from Fort Hamer all the way over to Rye, something alternative to Golf Course Road, alternative to going up into Parrish and coming around. And in fact, in our original approval, and this roadway actually has shared driveways so that you limit the number of driveways onto that roadway.
Oh, okay, that was my question. They had, it had been conceived that that would be a
All
collector.
From the beginning.
Understood.
From the beginning, and in fact, the original stipulations required that there be shared driveways on that roadway because of it being a collector.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Etchledge. Mr. Bowers?
Thank Mr. Grimes, just the bottom section, which I think is what, Phase 5? Yes. Under the original plan, how many homes was to be built there,
I get the number here.
or units?
191? 191, Stephanie has told me.
191. And you want to build how many now? Or have the ability to?
I'll get you the number here in a second.
487. It's 487 on the application.
Yeah, 487, right?
What's going to be the additional environmental impacts to that area, since how that's even closer to the river, of adding more than doubling the number of units?
Well, actually, the environmental impacts are lessened because we're no longer having the lots platted to the river. And of course, we're only in uplands, we're not touching any wetlands. And as you know, when you do the development today, you have to collect all runoff, you have to treat it, you have to take care of it. So it is our belief, and I think staff concurs, that the environmental impacts are actually positive. Even though there are more homes, there's no more area covered because you're making the lot smaller. And in fact, we're doing away with the platting out to the river. So environmental positive.
Mr. Bauer, okay.
Thank you, sir.
Any additional questions? All right, we're going to move to staff presentation. Mr. Grimes.
Good morning again, Mr. Chairman. I am Stephanie Moreland, and I have been sworn. I do have a presentation prepared. If we can just pull that up, please. Okay, Mr. Grimes already went over the location, but I'm going to say it again just for the record. Twin River Subdivision is on the south side of Golf Course Road, about 1 mile from the intersection of Rye Road in Parrish. The site is in the North Central Overlay District. He also showed you the aerial, and this is Phase 4, which has 213.51 acres, which is just, Gamble Creek is to the west of Phase 4C. And down here is Phase 5, which has 453.62 acres, and Manatee River is just south of that. He also went over the history of the site. The site was rezoned to planned development in 2000, and a general development plan was approved for 550 lots. Also, a church, daycare, and project sales office use was also approved. In 2002, the general development plan was revised. 2007, a final site plan for Phase 4C was approved for 33 lots, and also a preliminary plat. A final site plan was also approved for 191 lots for Phase 5. Phase 4C and 5 will expire in July of 2018. There are 304 lots platted from the 550 lots approved. And so today the request is to have one general development plan which has the two options, which is option A and option B, and both would have development of single-family detached residences. Option A includes the previous approval, which is for the 550 lots and the two phases of 4C and 5. and also the church, the daycare, and project sales office. Those use are remain. Option B includes an increase of lots for single-family detached residences. 4C would have 89 lots, and 5 would have 487 lots, for a total of 576 lots, retaining the church, daycare, and project sales office use. The total overall Twin River project would have 880 lots for an increase of 330 lots. The site is adjacent to perennial streams, which are the Gamble Creek and Manatee River. And the site, the areas nearest to the river and the Gamble Creek, they are in the coastal evacuation area and coastal high hazard area. The sites are in the flood zones A, AE, and X, and the site is partially in a floodway, and the project will utilize county water and sewer. This is the future land use map, which shows the site is in the UF3 future land use category, that is urban fringe, 3 dwelling units per acre. Special approval is required for a project adjacent to a perennial stream, for a project partially in the coastal evacuation area, and partially in the coastal high hazard area. This is the zoning map, which shows the zoning of the site. It is in a PDR zoning district, which is planned development residential. So here is a picture of the site plan, the previous approved site plan, and you can see phase 4 is in this area. And the lines that you see vaguely, these are how the lots were platted. And this is what Mr. Grimes was referring to. The lots are platted out into some of the coastal area and down in here into wetlands down in this area here to the south. And so phase 4C, as I said before, has the 33 lots with this approval. And then option B, which is the alternate plan, this is phase 4, and that shows the 89, well, it doesn't show the lots here, but it shows the areas, because this is a general development plan. It shows the areas where those 89 lots will be built, and that's a density of 0.41 dwelling units per acre for that phase. There are 46.14 acres for wetlands. There are no wetland impacts in this area, and this area also will utilize county water and sewer. And then here's option B, phase 5. And this is the phase 5 project. And once again, you could see the lots were removed, the platted lots that were in this area and the wetland areas along here and up to the side. Those were removed. And let's just go to this part here. And you can see the gross density for the 487 lots would be 1.07 dwelling units per acre. Wetlands in this area total 117.84 acres, and there's a 0.014 impact to the wetland, and this will also utilize county water and sewer. So then the total overall for the total Twin River subdivision, the gross acreage that we were given is 1,218.25 acres. The total lots, 880 lots, and the density is 0.77 dwelling units per acre gross and 0.98 dwelling units per acre net. That is below the 3 dwelling units per acre for the UF3. It is also below the 1 dwelling unit that requires special approval. Access, interior roadways will connect an existing main divided roadway, that is the Twin Rivers Trail, which connects Golf Course Road. And with these approvals, or with the proposal for Twin River Phase 5, there are 2 inter-neighborhood ties to the east, which will connect to an already approved subdivision, which was called River Trace Subdivision, not yet constructed. And these are the setbacks that are proposed. Specific approvals were granted with the previous approval, and they are being carried forward with this request. These are just a few snapshots that we have. This is west of Gamble Creek. This is the Canuck subdivision, which is not yet constructed is the Palmetto Pines Golf Course. This is Golf Course Road looking east, and then this is the entrance to Twin River subdivision. And then here's a picture of the Twin River Trail. These are some of the homes, just a quick snapshot of some of the homes in the area. Entering Phase 4C. And this is 4C looking west. You can see the notice sign there, and as you go further west, you get into that area. This is Phase 5. And then Twin Rivers looking from the area of Phase 5 north. Twin Rivers Trail, that is. And then here's the Gamble Creek looking south from Golf Course Road. And under positive aspects, adequate open space is provided. There was a question on the open space. The staff report has that comparison for you, which shows what the open space was previously to what they're proposing now. Proposed lots are outside the coastal evacuation area, and the 2 phases will complete the previously approved subdivision. Next one, please. Okay, under negative aspects, existing residences along Twin Rivers Trail may experience some potential adverse impacts relative to noise from construction traffic. The project is adjacent to small pockets of the A zoning district, which permits agricultural uses that may be incompatible with single-family development. Under mitigating factors, staff recommends construction hours occur between the hours of 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., and the applicant was agreeable to those times. Staff recommends language in the notice to buyers informing homeowners of the presence of neighboring agricultural uses, including the use of pesticides and herbicides and odors and noises and all those things that are associated with agricultural uses. There were no outstanding issues during the review. There were citizen comments. You have them in the record. We had 3 phone inquiries and several letters we received even up until this morning. Staff recommends approval.
Does that conclude your presentation, Ms.
That
Moore?
concludes my presentation.
I have a question for you. Several times during your presentation, you referenced platted lots that were subject to change in option B. Are they truly platted, or are they proposed lots?
They are platted lots in phase. That's how the plan is shown with the defined lot lines.
Platted meaning they're in the
They show the defined lot lines of how those lots are.
currently.
Yes, on that particular approval.
They've been platted and they're part of the record.
Yes.
I think the applicant needs to follow up on that.
Okay, they can do that at rebuttal.
Okay, all right. And then secondly, there was a condition, previous exception, I guess it was, the 800-foot cul-de-sac length was
Yes.
An exception that's being carried forward.
Yes, we're not changing the specific approvals from what they were approved before.
A specific approval, okay,
Yes.
Allowing cul-de-sacs to exceed 800 feet in length. Is the amount that they're being exceeded, the amount in excess of 800 feet, is that similar?
I'm not sure that any of the roadways with the new plan exceed 800 feet. Back when they had their previous approval, they had some issues with that, where they
Okay.
requested specific approval, but we did not take that away from them.
Okay, in rebuttal, I'll ask the applicant to address
Yes.
that. I would like to know specifically if there are any cul-de-sacs that exceed 800 feet in length, and if there are, what are they? Thank you. Are there any other questions for staff? Mr. Bauer?
Sure. You said there's pockets that are adjacent to Zone A properties? Is that correct?
Yes, there is, let me get the map for you. The parcel that is just north of Phase 5 is still Zone A. specifically referring to, say, right here, where it says A. Oh, my pen isn't showing, but just north of Phase 5, it says the zoning shows for that parcel is A. We have some A that is up to the north, just west of the Gamble Creek. And then we have some A pockets, which is west of Phase 5 as well.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Rutledge.
No,
and then
go ahead, please.
Horgan. Okay, Mr. Horgan.
In follow-up to your question, Mr. Chairman, has Fire District made any comments about those 800-foot cul-de-sacs?
The fire district gave their approval for the project
Earlier
earlier, and also with this review.
with this review? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Horgan. Mr. Rutledge.
Yes, the applicant said that the environmental conditions, to Mr. Bauer's question, were improved because of some efforts they made. Do you concur with that? Is that a statement that you all would make?
Joel Christian for staff, and I've been sworn. I would agree. The previous plan showed large lots that had a large area of wetlands included within the lot. This takes that out of proposed platted lot boundaries and puts them in common area, and we feel that's a better, more environmentally sound practice for developing land.
Is it correct to say that the ones in the densifying area, I think that's 5 at the bottom of the plan, were moved off that area totally, and they kind of moved up inside, so you had that protected area? Is that correct?
Yeah, they were proposed to be platted to the Manatee River, to the ordinary high water line of the Manatee River. Those have been pulled back out of the wetland areas, so those would be in common area.
Follow-up question for Mr. Christian. Is it allowed in the current code to plat through wetlands or wetland buffers?
Platting of lots is considered development by the Land Development Code, and development in wetlands and wetland buffers has to go through the avoidance minimization process and meet the requirements. However, the previous general development plan was approved as such, and there's other phases that have lots platted into buffers and wetlands in other phases.
Okay, Mr. Rutledge.
And just one other question. This connective road from Mulholland into Rye Road, is that designed with calming design intentions in mind, or is it designed to meet the county standard as is typical? I'm just curious how you perceive this road and its intensity and the impact on those people that either come off from the other locations into that road.
Are you referring to Mulholland Road, the proposed extension that they're talking about?
Yes, sir.
Or internal roads? The Mulholland Road is a designated collector road on the county's thoroughfare plan. Collector roads are intermediate between, say, local subdivision streets and the major arterial roads. They, as their name suggests, collect and distribute traffic between lower speed roads with lots of driveway accesses to the major roads that are designed for large volumes at high speeds. So we've not begun design of this section, but given the fact that it runs through a residential area, I would expect a lower speed type road, but designed to county standards so that it can carry traffic. I mean, don't suffer any misconception that it should be like a 2,000 cars a day road. It's, should be several thousand cars a day capability. Whether or not it actually gets used for that purpose will depend on the land uses as they evolve in the area.
Follow-up to that question, Mr. Davis. The county will dictate the character of that roadway, correct?
Depending on who undertakes it, but they would design it consistent with our criteria for a two-lane road with an 84-foot right-of-way, which is what's mentioned in the comp plan. In theory, it would be designed as a two-lane divided roadway with open drainage, but some of it's been built differently, and so it could get extended more like an urban road with curb and gutter and a little bit tighter form, and that can be done taking into consideration the character of the area when it's done. But that's getting a little bit ahead of where we are today. I mean, that, as far as I know, no one's actually undertaken the actual engineering design of the roadway.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Mr. Rutledge, were you done, or did you have additional items?
No, that's it. Sorry, thank you.
Are there any other questions for staff?
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Bauer?
In the staff report, you mentioned concerns about construction traffic. Has that been addressed formally, or how is that being addressed? I see that right now there's only one road in, one road out, correct?
There is a stipulation addressing the concerns with the construction traffic.
Okay. And what is that stipulation again? Is that the 7 a.m.?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Moreland. Any other questions for staff? We're going to move to the public comment section of the hearing. And Mr. McClure, you are up again. If you would please step up and state your name and that you've been sworn. And I apologize for the misfire.
I just took a little nap, that's okay. My name is Ron McClure, I have been sworn. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and other members of the board. 3 years ago, my wife and I moved from Austin, Texas to Florida. We were looking for the tropical paradise and found it in Manatee County. We was looking for a new home in a subdivision, and whereas you have many, that was one of the criteria why we chose Manatee County, along with the shopping, the retail and entertainment, and the beaches. We looked around and we found Twin Rivers. At the top of our list, our wish list, was to find and purchase a home where the lot size was at least 1 acre, because we were concerned with the space between our home and our neighbor's home. The other was the density of the subdivision, and that was important to us because of the traffic. We realized that in Twin Rivers is typical, where the width of the roads is up to county code. Now, that would accommodate 2 dump trucks meeting. If the drivers are paying attention, it's fine. If they're not, they might kiss their side mirrors. But having lived there for 2 years, we have found that when the construction is ongoing, you have a lot of dump trucks, concrete trucks, 18-wheelers with roof joists, all types of contractor traffic that really is impacting the width of the road, especially when you have neighbors who do a lot of exercise walking their dogs. You have out of the subdivision vendors that come in to do lawn mowing, electrical, plumbing, whatever, and they park on the street, which just leaves enough space for a passing vehicle. And if you got a couple of dump trucks, I've seen it almost happen several times where one of those vendors almost got tail-ended. I've seen where a vendor stepped out behind his trailer, where he had his mower unloading and loading, and almost get hit by a dump truck. So my concern is not only the traffic, but I moved into a subdivision that had rules of what the size is and how it was portrayed to me to purchase. And then later on, I'm being told that in the middle of the game, the rules are going to change because one team doesn't like how the score is going. And I don't think that that's fair. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Are there any questions for Mr. McClure? Mr. Bauer?
Ms. McClure, were you at any of the homeowner association meetings?
Yes.
What was your opinion on how those meetings went?
They were very well attended, and there were a lot of pros and cons, people speaking their mind. They were concerned with the expansion of the number of units, increasing the density in the subdivision, and then the loss of value in more upper-scaled homes to a condo or townhouse or a patio home.
Okay.
And one thing I'd like to, other thing, most of the new construction is at the back end of the subdivision. So those of us who live up the front end, we've got all that increased traffic. I live on 162nd Street, which is the second entranceway into the subdivision. So we get that, we're going to get a ton of traffic coming through there. Twin Rivers Trail Road is the main artery, but like most truck drivers, you know, they're going to take the shortest route, and we get a lot of traffic by our home now, so.
Thank you, Ms. McClure. Thank you.
Can I ask one other question?
Yes, Mr. Rutledge.
Yes, sir. And what's your sensitivity to the level of additional homes after the construction is completed, if it were done, and then they're uphousing a certain number of homes?
Well, my sensitivity is, first off, the completion of those homes is going to be several years away. It's not going to be anything that's going to be short time. Consequently, we're going to have to put up with the inconvenience of some of the things I've laid out about the safety and the traffic issues. But if you wanted a patio-size home, a patio-size home is fine as far as I'm concerned, except whenever you're looking for a home in a subdivision, there's many of them around. If you want a patio home, choose one that has patio homes. If you have a subdivision that was sold by half acre to acre and above lots, don't buy into that one. And those that live there, don't let the developers change the rules.
Okay, thank you, Mr. McClure. Let me remind the commissioners, if you would, follow-up questions related to their initial testimony. Let's not prompt additional discussion. So we've got a lot of people that wish to speak, so let's make sure everybody has an opportunity. Next up is Joanne Stewart. If you would, please step up and state your name and that you've been sworn, please.
Hello, my name is Joanne Stewart, and I have been sworn.
Thank you.
I'd like to read something. Perhaps the most unique feature of Twin Rivers is a generous lot size. Residents may choose from manor lots, estate lots, or plantation lots, ranging from half an acre to 1 acre in size. Larger estates of several acres are planned for later phases. Additionally, each home site is serviced with county water and sewer. Twin Rivers website. This is what we were all sold. When we moved into Twin Rivers, we were sold large home sites, as Mr. McClure stated. In fact, it is not true that people don't want large home sites, unlike what Mr. Grimes and Mr. Durso have stated. Just look at the success the Medallion Home community has had in Twin Rivers, and I'm sure Mr. Beasley will be able to tell you how many new houses have been put in there, but it's upwards of probably 100 in the last year or so. Also, if you look at the resale market in Twin Rivers, there's a huge number of homes. It is a huge desired market to have large home sites. Mr. Grimes himself stated that option B may in fact change to even being more large home sites. It all depends on the market. And that's why we're here today. It's because of somebody wanting to make more money off our backs. We bought into Twin Rivers for a concept for large home sites. We do not want the increase in density. Phase 5 alone, while overall it says that we're going to be under the 1 density per unit, Phase 5 alone, going from 191 to 487, is a 155% increase in homes. All of that traffic will come up Twin Rivers Trail. It was stated that Twin Rivers Trail was a divided road. That in fact is not true. There are a couple of small medians on Twin Rivers Trail. It is a small road either way on either side. As Mr. McClure stated, it's already difficult getting up and down the road, especially with another issue we have with the dump trucks. So it's not a divided road. I don't want anyone thinking that this is designed to able to accommodate upwards of 600 cars. That's just 2 more cars per house for the additional houses they want to put out there. For the total development, going up to 880, that's a 60% increase in density in the development. We did not buy into that. A 60% increase in the overall development, let alone 155 in Phase 5 alone. Mr. Rutledge, you asked whether or not the Mulholland Road had been endorsed by the community. It was in fact brought up at one of our community meetings. However, there was no discussion from residents as to whether or not we wanted it. Mr. Grimes also stated that there was a community meeting where we were initially going to be asked about our opinion on all of the options. As it turns out, Mr. Durso just asked us if we wanted townhouses or not. That was, as Mr. Grimes said, turned down. They didn't tell you how much. 3-1, people did not want it. But we have not had an opportunity to say whether we wanted smaller houses on these smaller lots. And finally, as I know my time is coming out, I know that they submitted a letter by Rennie Fink. Rennie Fink is supposed to be the homeowner's representative from Twin Rivers. Just like the rest of us, we had to have our letters in. I would like to get a copy of that. It supposedly is representing the residents of Twin Rivers, and none of us here were ever informed of that, sent that to approve before it was sent in. So if we can get a copy of that as homeowners, we would appreciate it.
Clerk's office, how might the residents get a copy of this letter? Is it going to be available?
Once the meeting adjourns,
Okay,
I can scan it and.
great. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Are there any questions for Ms. Stewart?
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Bauer?
do you have the same opinion about the traffic if Mulholland Drive, that extension was connected?
I do think some of the traffic may be diverted down Mulholland Drive. However, with our new bridge going in, Fort Hamer Road, which we're very happy about, you're going to have the traffic coming back down Twin Rivers to go over the bridge. So while, yes, it may divert some of the traffic out to Rye Road, if you're wanting to go down to, Lakewood Ranch Boulevard or something, you're going to come back down Twin Rivers, go to Fort Hamer, and down that way. You're not going to go Mulholland to Rye in all likelihood. And the other thing on Mulholland, you said about that's a feeder road. Twin Rivers Trail was not designed like that. So where they were talking earlier about, it's a feeder road for traffic, and that's why they've got combined driveways. Twin Rivers Trail does not have combined driveways on it. So it's not designed for that significant increase in traffic going up and down.
Thank you.
I invite you to come out and have a look.
Thank you.
I don't think we're allowed.
Any questions? Okay. We're going to move on to the next neighbor citizen, Rhoda Grebe. I'm sorry, Rhoda Grebe. I'm sorry. Yes, ma'am. If you could, please state your name and that you've been sworn. Next, we'll have Mr. Logan. Mr. Pete Logan will speak next.
Hello, my name is Rhoda Grebe, and I thank you very much for hearing me today.
Have you been sworn, Ms. Grebe?
I live on the other side.
Ms. Grebe, have you been sworn?
Pardon?
Have you been sworn?
Oh, yes, sir.
Okay.
I was sitting back there, but I certainly did. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry to interrupt.
As I mentioned, I live on the other side of Gamble Creek in an agricultural area. So I don't live in the development. But what I see is seems to be a trend in development that apply for increased density after they have been working in and filling their lots as originally planned. And now we have another development that's applying for increased density. And this alarms me a little bit. They are failing to take into account of the surrounding areas. That higher population will lead to the overcrowding of schools, roadways, and burden on public services. And especially high density will bring on more issues of crime. As a homeowner from way back in 1970s, and living right there, right next to Gamble Creek, we're well aware of the problem with high waters and flooding, and have encountered them more often in recent years than we used to. Because with the increase in development all around us, you have less land that is going to compensate for the runoff. People have moved into this parish area wanting a small town environment. With all of the other developments around that have already been approved, our area will soon be filled to the max with services. And for the land itself to make use of the natural runoff that there has been in the regard to water and flooding will definitely become a problem. I'm applying to the Planning Commission and the commissioners to use common sense in this area so that all of the people in this area will be taken into account as to why they have moved here and to be proud of their area, not to have it become rundown little developments in future years.
Ms.
We
Greavy,
love Parrish. Just don't let it be swallowed up by greed.
Thank you, Ms. Greavy. We'll see if any of the commissioners have any follow-up questions. No questions. Thank you very much. Next up is Mr. Pete Logan. If you would, please state your name and that you've been sworn.
Thank you, Chairman Connerly and fellow commissioners. For the record, my name is Pete Logan, and I have been sworn. I'm the president of Medallion Home. In 2012, we invested millions of dollars of capital in the stalled Twin Rivers subdivision. At that time, there was no building activity or sales to speak of, and there were still a number of short sales and foreclosures throughout which the community had to work through. Aggregately, we've invested in approximately 140 fully developed lots in addition to 100 vacant but fully entitled acres that's at the front of the community that's known as Phase 6 of Twin Rivers. In doing so, we worked closely with Mr. D'Urso to consummate most of these transactions. And as a result of our investment and efforts, Twin Rivers is again a thriving community with building activity from multiple builders and sales price appreciation to the benefit of the entire community. We bought into Twin Rivers attracted by the large half-acre lots that had central water and sewer services. During our negotiations, Mr. D'Urso, to his credit, was very careful to preserve the community and property values to the benefit of the residents. Against his wishes at that time, but in the spirit of saving the community, we together agreed to a minimum square footage reduction in Phase 4 of 1,500 square foot AC square footage. We, Medallion, agreed to only use this in the event of another market slide as an exit strategy only. Twice after that, Mr. D'Urso attempted to persuade us to give up that right to the benefit of the residents in Twin Rivers. No homes have been built that small to date. In fact, the smallest home that we offer for sale currently is about 2,380 square feet under air. Medallion shared in Mr. D'Urso's vision, and in the interest of the residents and community, we've seen our base prices increase from 2012 to today, a minimum of $65,000 across the board, and many of those have gone up further. That's why it's a complete surprise to us that the applicant has taken this proposed direction with incompatible lots that are in some cases less than a third of the size of other lots currently in the community. And those would be as comparison to the other smallest lots in the community. The impact to existing residents under the current proposal will be damaging. Some of their property values still haven't reached the pre-recession levels. The impact of those of us that invested in the community under Mr. D'Urso's visions and previously reassuring actions will be detrimental at best. The changes are incompatible, and the collective damages of all impacted could be in the tens of millions of dollars. Most times when neighbors complain about compatibility, it's the rezoning of adjacent land. For example, my salesperson told me the neighboring property would never be developed, or my salesperson told me it was a conservation easement, or that all of the lots in the community would be developed the same as my lot is in terms of size and product offering. What's different here is that the investments made into the community, both by businesses and individuals who call Twin Rivers home, were done so with full entitlements in place for the very large estate-sized lots that have been developed and sold for years. I think they mentioned earlier that they already have construction plan approvals for those large lots. I've just less than 1 minute.
You, please.
Thank you. And additionally, as mentioned, all those new homes planned will share only two principal existing entrances, providing no additional access point until such time as they extend Mulholland Road. We're hopeful to resolve our concerns with Mr. D'Urso in advance of this going forward, but unfortunately we haven't been able to do so as of yet, which is the reason we're here stating our objection. As a result, and on behalf of our own interests and at least those of the clients to which Medallion Home has sold homes in Twin Rivers, we respectfully request that you recommend denial of this request to the County Commission. We thank you for your time and your consideration here today.
Thank you, Mr. Logan. I'm sorry, follow-up question for
One
Mr.
question,
Rhodes.
please, Mr. Logan.
Yes, sir.
One of the reasons I think that we have plan, option B, I guess, in front of us, they were saying was market-driven. Market-driven, the demand for the smaller homes being the impetus there. But based on your information and your knowledge of what's proceeding with your development in that area, you're saying that business, so to speak, is good with the larger and not necessarily going to the smaller, what that they're calling patio homes. That's what is sort of a summation of what you were saying related
Yes.
to the marketing and sales?
From our perspective, I mean, certainly other builders have different niches. We happen to really favor large lots. We've been successful at a number of areas in that submarket, Country Meadows, Enclave at Country Meadows, Gamble Creek Estates, and Twin Rivers. And we would like to see that continuity continue because that's the program that we thought we were buying into.
Question?
Mr. Morgan.
So from a marketing perspective, you are seeing that your market has recovered consistent with the rest of the general overall market in Manatee County, your large lot market?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Rutledge.
Thank you, sir. How many, you purchased 140 units initially in this area?
Over a period of time, there was one large transaction that was 122 units, but we've picked up another 18 plus or minus units through banks or third-party owners or what have you.
As recently as when have you picked up these additional units?
The last two lots that we closed, we purchased directly from Mr. Durso in the last 90 days.
Okay. And how many lots do you have left to sell out there? Approximately, I'm just...
Approximately 80, plus the 100 acres that are fully entitled but undeveloped at this time. That's the front of the community, Phase 6.
And what would you say your general investment is out there, just curiously, just ballpark?
In terms of capital into the community?
Yeah, just kind of generally what you've put out there.
Including model build-outs and those things to market the community?
Now you're getting way smarter than me, so. Just ballpark how much you have
Just
stuck out
talking
there.
acquisition costs is probably in the neighborhood of $3 million or a little bit more than that. If you're talking about dollars committed to the community in terms of model homes, acquisition costs, marketing costs, I would say we're well north of 5 at this point.
Did it?
Yes, sir. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony, Mr.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next up is Mr. Phil Durstein. If you would, please state your name and that you've been sworn.
Good morning. My name is Phil Durstein. I'm the pastor. Oh, I'd like to.
Have you been sworn, or do you need to be sworn?
I need to be.
Okay, if there's anybody else in the audience who wishes to speak on anything else on the agenda today, please rise and be sworn in.
Do you swear or affirm that the factual statements and factual representations which you're about to present to this board will be truthful and accurate?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Continue.
I'm Phil Durstein. I'm the pastor and developer of the Christian Retreat property. And if we get the aerial up there, I can show you where we purchased 110 acres in 1968 and have been developing the 70 acres south of the Manatee River. The Manatee River runs through the property. And if we could have the aerial, I think, can I use this?
You'll have to lay a pin or something on the
Here.
Yes, sir.
There's Christian Retreat, the 70 acres is right here. And then that square right north of the river, it's A, west of the original Phase 5. If you could put that one up, you could maybe see it more clearly. You can see south of the river. Yeah. If you could put the one up that's got the designated A parcels.
Right, sir. We may run out of time if
Okay, I'm sorry.
If we
have 40 acres west of the original Phase 5, and my concern is how we're going to gain access to that 40 acres. Previously, I discussed with Mr. Durso a 12.5 acre lot that was in Phase 5 that was along our whole eastern border there. And now I see that lot is removed. We had been negotiating on that lot and had some verbal decisions on that. And so I wish that if this would be approved, that there would be some stipulation as to where and how we're going to gain access to our 40 acres, or I'm going to be back in front of this board and the commission to determine that, or maybe to ask for a bridge over the Manatee River.
We all know how those go.
It's good to have faith.
Thank you,
So-
sir.
Is that something that could be stipulated with the?
Is that your only concern? We'll follow up with the.
It is.
Okay.
It is.
I'd like to ask the county attorney's office, with regard to access, should we direct the pastor to staff to, I mean, what's the protocol? I know
I
it's
think his
outside.
comments in the record, if the applicant needs to address it during rebuttal, he can.
Okay.
I can't give legal advice to the pastor at this
Right.
point.
So, okay, we'll see what the applicant has to say, and in addition, you know, the case planner is Ms. Moreland. She could also be a point of contact with regard to information, so.
Mr. Chairman?
Follow-up question from Mr. Rhodes.
Yeah, Pastor, currently, how do you have access to the 40 acres right now?
Currently, we have that 40 acres developed as a primitive camping and a prayer retreat. We've developed it as what we call Prayer Island because we take people over there by a pontoon boat ferry. We have prayer paths and 12 prayer stations with benches and lamps and everything, and primitive camping for father-son campouts, that sort of thing. It's actively used and accessed by crossing the Manatee River on pontoon boats, canoes, kayaks, that sort of thing from our 70-acre development.
Well, then, with this development, if it proceeds, how does that movement to get to those acres change? I'm not following how you
Well,
get isolated.
we'd like to access this property from the other side. I mean, as we have people over there, we need emergency services from time to time, and presently, it's difficult for them, you know, to cross the river. We're going to need more access, I think, as the development wraps around us. There'll be people coming into that prayer theme park, is what it is, from the north side. And, of course, we want access to it, too, just to service our use of that property.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, as a follow-up, the property is not currently landlocked. Is that correct?
It is landlocked.
So it is an island.
No, it's not an island. I'm sorry. It would be, you know, right now it's a peninsula, but on the west and south side is the Manatee River. On the north and east side of that 40 acres would be the Twin Rivers development.
Okay.
For clarification, the majority of your property is south of the river. This particular
Yes.
parcel is north of the river.
It's all adjacent, but the river runs through it.
Yes.
And under the old proposal, there was a 12.5-acre lot up the whole east side of our 40 acres that we were interested in because it gave us access into the road.
Okay.
So just for graphic purposes, Twin Rivers is Georgia and you are Florida?
Yeah. Yeah. Good visual.
Thank you. Thank you, Pastor.
I think that's a group's name, too.
Yeah. All right. Next person signed up to speak is Pamela DiAgostino. If you would please step up and state your name and that you've been sworn, please.
Hello, Pamela DiAgostino, and I have been sworn most recently with the pastor. Thank you for letting me come speak. I'm pleased to see some of my fellow neighbors. I live 2 doors down from Ron McClure and around the corner from Alex, another resident who's here. Thank you, Pete, for giving me a wonderful house. I bought my home from Mr. Logan. I'm hoping that the board will recommend denial of this proposal. I attended every meeting that Mr. Durso had so that we could be apprised of the changes he wanted to make to the development of our community. I was one of the neighbors who objected to that. I wasn't particularly vocal at the meetings, but I was objecting to it along with a lot of my fellow neighbors. I think this will substantially change the way our community was designed, and it will change my enjoyment of the community and the enjoyment many of us have of it. I moved here from St. Petersburg, and I searched all of Manatee County trying to find the perfect neighborhood for me and for my soon-to-be family, and we settled in Twin Rivers because of the big lots, because of how beautiful it is in the space. And if we have these patio homes, I just think that's going to have a horribly negative impact on the traffic, on the community, on the look and feel of the neighborhood and the residents. And I think it'll have a huge impact on the wildlife, which hasn't been brought up. We have so much wildlife in our community that walk around, the sandhill cranes, the deer, so much that we see, and I don't know how all these additional properties won't impact that wildlife. So thank you very much for your time. I won't use all of it up, but I do hope you deny the request.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for your testimony. Is there any follow-up questions for Ms. DiAgostino? Okay, thank you. All right, the last person signed up to speak is Mr. Alex Beasley. If you would, please step up and state your name and that you've been sworn.
My name is Alex Beasley, and I have been sworn. I come to you today, Board, as a resident of Twin Rivers, a homeowner who is here to try to protect my property values. I have a different angle on things because I am a real estate professional. Specifically, I am a real estate professional in Twin Rivers involved with the construction and sale of the new homes. I have my pulse on what is happening with this community. That is my career and my livelihood. Twin Rivers is a property that is not just a local gem. It is known nationwide. I get phone calls from people who say, a friend of mine was in Florida. They told me about this amazing neighborhood that ubiquitous was half-acre and larger home sites. The new proposal is incompatible with that. The increase of the GDP changes the identity of the community. And it is that identity which brings the specific value and the specific enjoyment to the residents and to the neighborhood. I certainly hope that you take that under consideration because as I speak with the residents on a daily basis, it is a huge topic of concern and a buzz in the entire neighborhood. What is this going to do to our homes? What is this going to do to the values? What is this going to do to our enjoyment of the amenities and things in there? It is my professional opinion in this that we will see a decrease in overall home values. Resale values will drop. It will lose the identity that has given us so much to the community. I would also like to talk about one of the things that Mr. Grimes brought up, which was the desire for the growing community of empty nesters and early retirees who are moving to Florida and purchasing homes. While Twin Rivers appears on paper to be sprawling home sites and the ideal place for families to grow, have more elbow room, what we have really found, the primary demographic overall that is purchasing our homes is the empty nester and early retiree demographic. While they brought up that they're looking for the ability to live in a mixed neighborhood where you have people from different walks of life, children running around, but that the empty nesters or retirees are looking for smaller home sites, nothing could be further from the truth. And that shows just in the records of who we're selling homes to. They want the vibrant community, but these are people that are looking to invest $400,000 to $900,000 into a home, that are downsizing from large home sites up north, and they want to preserve their elbow room. They want a place to go to where everything is going to be the larger home sites because that is what brings value to their neighborhood and it brings enjoyment to everything. So I would tell you that it's not the right opinion to say, oh, we don't have a market for this type home. You know, we would not have absorbed over and gone into construction on over 70 homes in the last 2 years if there was not a market. Just one more second, please.
Continue.
If there was not a market for a larger home site in Parrish, how would we have found the success that we have? We consistently outpace other communities in the area, and it is because of the theme of the neighborhood, that is the half-acre and larger home sites. So, ladies and gentlemen, it is my most sincere hope that you make your recommendation to the Commission to leave the community as it was originally developed. Leave it as it is known nationwide as a community of all half-acre and larger home sites. Please don't make a recommendation to take our values away from us.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Are there any follow-up questions for Mr. Beasley? Seeing none?
Thank
you, sir. Thank you for your testimony. All right, those are all the folks that have signed up to speak on this. Is there anybody else in the audience who failed to sign up but would like to make a statement? Okay, seeing none, we're gonna move to the staff. Is it applicant closing comments? I guess no. I'm sorry. Are there any additional questions for the applicant, for the staff, anything like that? Okay, applicant, if you would, please. Okay.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair.
I'm
I
sorry.
have just two comments, if I.
Yes, ma'am.
Make them before we have staff. I did want to, in case this weighs into your decision-making process, there was a proffer by the applicant of a stipulation D6
Yes, ma'am.
concerning, say, the applicant, quote, agreed to construct extension Mulholland Road. That word agreed was put in there deliberately because of the Kunz case. The applicant's aware of what I'm going to say. We'll recommend the Plan Commission not consider D6 at this time. There still could be legal arguments that we're requiring a construction of a road that's not substantiated by the need for by a traffic study. We have no traffic study at that stage because it's only a general development plan. We can't require anything beyond what's required by the traffic generated by the project, and we don't have the data analysis in the record to support exacting at this time. So I would disregard the D6 deliberations at this point. Not to say later on there won't be a traffic study and that road improvements can be required at that time, but it won't be at this level. It's just premature to say we can require it now. And secondly, I heard a lot of conversations about market value. We're not experts in market value. We've heard no competent testimony in market value today. We have nothing in our criteria for approval of preliminary site plans allows the Plan Commission to consider market value. Nothing in your concept plan. We don't have an economic element to allow you to consider market value. So I advise you today not to consider market value. We don't care whether big lots are in demand or small lots. All we care about is land use, consistent with the concept plan and the LDC. We can't speculate on whether any project will hurt market value or improve it.
So again, the metric that we're measuring this project by is the comprehensive plan and the land development code.
Correct, thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Shank, you said that we should not consider D6 at this time.
Correct.
Is there going to be a time at which it would be considered? Is that going
Well,
to be possibly at the board level?
Well,
or-
Clark Davis can address that during staff
Okay.
comments, but at such time that they apply for a concurrency certificate, the applicant is required to do a traffic study, and the traffic study may require the applicant to improve this road and get impact fee credits for portions of it. But we don't have the traffic study to show the applicant generates enough traffic to warrant the road improvement. So it's just premature right now to require it. Staff can require administratively when we get the traffic study later in the process.
Thank you, Ms. Shank.
Chairman?
Mr. Horgan.
For Ms. Shank. Ms. Shank, did not the developer bring up the issue of market value? And I am, by the way, as a full disclosure, I am a market expert in large lot subdivisions because I was the vice president of marketing for Panther Ridge. So I know what they look like and I know how they sell.
I'm just telling you right now, you're constrained by your concept plan and your land development code, and the case law says you can't base decisions on market value.
Okay.
We don't exist here to maximize profits for developers or to hurt anybody's property values. We exist here to view for comp plan, land use, and LDC.
But the developer did bring it up. That's why the conversation
You can't
occurred.
edit out what people say under oath. And sometimes developers say that because they want to explain why they're here. And that's fine. I mean, it's in the record. But when you come down to what can we base our decision on, you have to sift all this testimony down to a funnel. And you may hear 100% of the testimony, you only be able to consider 50% of it.
So,
Thank you.
Again, when considering the action on this item, land development code and comprehensive plan, please. All right, staff closing comments?
Mr. Chairman, I'm Stephanie Moreland, and I have been sworn. And just a few notes that I took for the question that was asked about the construction traffic, that is stipulation number 6 of the staff report, which reads, construction in phase 4C and 5 shall occur between the hours of 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. Monday through Saturday. There was a comment about the road being a divided roadway. There are areas of that road that is divided. We took pictures of it, and as you travel down to phase 5, that is a divided roadway in that area of phase 5. Schools, there was a comment about schools, and we have a report from the school board which says that There is sufficient capacity in the elementary, middle school, and high schools. The elementary school is Annie Lucy Williams. Buffalo Creek Middle is the middle school, and Palmetto High School is the high school. And the school board says we have sufficient capacity there. The person requesting the access to the 40 acres, Joel can comment on that if he needs to, but the 40 acres is off-site. It's not on the Twin Rivers property. Also, that area of the Twin Rivers property to the west has lots of wetlands. So if supposedly they were going to put a road in, you would have to create some impact to those wetlands and areas that may be conservation areas. Somebody made a comment about the sandhill cranes. I also live in the North River community. I've been there for over 30 years, and today I still have sand cranes. The other day I went home and I was going to my mailbox, and I was surprised to look across the street, and there was 5 of them standing just looking at me. And but they still come around. This property is also in the UF3 future land use category, and that's from the comprehensive plan. And the maximum density that this future land use category is 3 dwelling units per acre. The project is asking for an increase from 0.48 dwelling units per acre to 0.77 dwelling units per acre, which is below the special approval threshold for the urban French district. Joel, Tom, anybody else have anything else? Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I did want to address the one citizen comment regarding drainage. For the record, Thomas Gerstenberger, Public Works Department, I've been sworn.
Thank you.
With respect to this project and Gamble Creek watershed, any project located within this watershed is required to reduce allowable runoff rate by 50%. And in addition, there are several stipulations on this project that carry over from the previous approval with respect to floodplain, floodway impacts, and demonstration of no adverse impacts. This project also already has a conditional letter of map revision through FEMA for demonstrating that no adverse impacts are created to the floodway or the flood zone of Gamble Creek.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Gerstenberger. Any additional staff comments? Applicant rebuttal. I'm sorry,
I have a question.
Mr. Bauer. For staff?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Just so I can get my head wrapped around this a little bit. Option A is as it was previously. No changes, correct? Option A?
Correct.
Okay. Option B. What are the, specifically, what are the special approvals required to approve option B? I just want to confirm what those are. I'm looking over the recommended motion, but I just want to verify exactly what special approvals are required to approve option B.
Mr. Bauer, to clarify your question, are you asking what additional special approvals are required with this action that were not previously required?
Well, is it that some of the special approvals that were previously approved, that was included in option A, they carry over to option B? I don't understand why that is so.
Well, I'm not sure if the county attorney's office would be the right one to answer the question, but as I understand it, the rights were established with the previous action, so those rights cannot be removed unless it's through a formal process.
But they're asking for something new.
Right.
Well, Mr. Chairman, Sarah Shank for the record. Looking at the map, the entire projects in the coastal hazard area appears, and the special approvals relate to coastal hazard area and the coastal evacuation area and perennial stream. And I'm assuming they already had those special approvals for the existing plan, and that they're asking for them again for the new plan. So I think it's for the new plan that they're asking for the new special approvals, and staff can correct me.
The special approvals are required. I went through the special approvals in my presentation. The only special approvals were granted before because of the project being in the coastal evacuation area, coastal high hazard area. And it is parts of the site, only small areas of the site are still in those areas, but no homes are in those areas. And so special approval is still required because parts of the site are in those areas. The specific approvals that you see in the report were granted before with the previous approval, and they have not asked for any new specific approvals.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Ms. Bauer. Anything else for staff? Sorry, Mr. Grimes, your rebuttal, please.
Thank you. Caleb Grimes again. I want to answer some of the questions that I think staff had that were raised first. Number one, there was a question about whether the Phase 5 and 4C has been platted. The answer is no, that has not been platted. As we indicated, we have site plan approval for it and construction plan, but it has not been platted. The second thing, there was a question about the cul-de-sac length and the cul-de-sac situation. This is if I may, this is explaining where the two cul-de-sacs are in the existing plan. What will happen is if we go to alternative B, this cul-de-sac goes away because it becomes an interconnected, and this cul-de-sac ends up stopping here because the rest becomes looped, if you'll recall in looking at the new design. See, this gets connected and this becomes looped. So actually, even though that is a continued request for a specific approval for that, it gets lessened with number B. Everybody understand that?
Yes.
The question about the Mulholland Road, this would be a county road. It is a county road. It would continue to be a county road, and we would expect that the county would look at it for traffic design and calming effects and everything like they would any other road. We are not thinking any time in the future that the bridge will be put over Mulholland Road. So what we are proposing with the Mulholland Road, and I'll get to that in just a second, is that this would be taking care of this particular development. Question was asked about this site, which is right here, that the church, the Christian Retreat raised. And of course, we didn't create their situation. They bought a piece of land that is on the other side of the river from them. Access is not being changed at all to them with our request for alternative B. There is no change in what access they have or don't have. With that, we are not proposing to provide an access to allow people outside of Twin Rivers community to come down and go through the site. So we are not proposing that, and I hope the people out there don't suggest that we're inviting people from outside the community to come in. And I want to reiterate, Commissioner Bauer, your question about specific approval, special approval. We are not asking for any new or changes, any additional requests for that. For example, your comprehensive plan says that if you have more than 1 unit per acre in UF3, you have to get special approval. We're not asking for that. We didn't ask for it before. We're not asking for it now because our density is well below 1 unit per acre. You do have to get special approval if you're on a perennial stream, for example. Well, we're on a perennial stream. We were before. We are now. There's no difference. CCH was given the same thing. So this request does not create the need for any new specific or special approvals. We're not asking for anything different on that. The The main road that is through here, there was a question about, I don't know why it was suggested we said it was divided, but we didn't. There are some divided sections in it, but that roadway, Mr. Mulock just reminded me, is actually got 16-foot right-of-ways. It's designed to be a wider roadway and take care of that. We do have stipulations on construction traffic. Please understand whether we do A or B, just like this whole subdivision has been developed, you have construction traffic periodically when the units are built. Mr. Logan testified about his properties. Virtually, most all of them are in Twin River 2, which is over in this part of the section, not Twin River 1. I think there's a few in Twin River 1. And of course, Medallion has a piece right here where they're doing the smaller lots, just like we're proposing at, one developer not wanting another developer to do something is often kind of interesting. The comprehensive plan, and I do want to call attention to policy 2127,
Please be mindful of the time, Mr.
Okay, if I could ask Mr. Durso wanted to address a question on that was raised relative to why we're asking for this from a market standpoint, not market values.
No, I think
not market values.
I don't think we need that testimony.
Okay, and please understand that our comments were about the market has changed. We were not talking about values. We're talking about market has changed. Frankly, if we thought we could sell these all out quickly and nicely at the size, we wouldn't be here today. And we're seeing this in developments all over. You see it all through Lakewood Ranch. You see it in all of the developments that you have different neighborhoods. All we're asking for is an additional neighborhood, but we've done it in a way that the look, feel, and of Twin River is not even remotely affected. These are all off the main roads, off the roads that you
Mr.
see
Renz.
when you're in there.
Okay.
So we request your approval.
All right, thank you. Are there any questions for the
I think I need to answer
Well, your question is
on the
regarding
stipulation.
D6?
Yes.
I don't know that Ms. Schenk had a question, but
Well, I'm just clarifying for the record that the applicant's proposed stipulation changes are limited to B2, which says no more than 8 docks can be built for common or private use.
Mr. Chairman, if I may just address D6 very quickly.
Yes.
First and foremost, we have made that promise to the community, and it will not go away whether it's a stipulation or not. Okay. Secondly, I talked to Mr. Clegg about it briefly, and he suggested we work between now and the board to get that so it is not in violation of the Kuntz decision on the requirements. We recognize that. We want to make sure the county has no liability or issues with that. We have made it very clear the county has not asked us to do this, so that the county is not doing that. So we will continue to work with that with the county attorney.
okay, thank you. All right.
So for purposes of any motion, the only change is the B2 in the handout.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, were there any questions for the applicant? If not, we're going to,
I have a
Mr.
question for the
Gillespie.
case planner. The applicant
okay.
proposed B2, 8 docks or no more than 8 docks? Per our thing, it's just 1 dock.
I think that's an updated, it was a typographical error.
Right, the existing development order, it's consistent with the existing development order allowing 8 docks within the issue.
Okay, thank you. Are there any additional questions or clarifications prior to me closing the public hearing?
Can I ask one thing of the case?
Sure, go ahead. We're going
Again,
loose today.
In your recommendation, you find no special conditions or special requests that would, from your perspective and from the professional's perspective, turn this down? Yes, ma'am. Sorry.
From my review, we gave staff recommendation based on the review from the comprehensive plan and land development code.
Okay. Thank you. All right, I'm going to close the public hearing portion of this, and we're going to go into deliberations. Is there, if you would, there's been a lot of dialogue relative to opposition, and as staff has indicated, there's support on their side. If you have an opinion, please support your opinion with discussion relative to any motion that's made. So, are there any items for deliberation?
I'd just like to.
Mr. Rhodes.
Yeah, just to make an overall comment. In looking at what's been stated and what has given to us in the documents, I do think that the potential for option B does change the look and the feel of the current Twin Rivers. I think the percent, if it's a build out, over 50% of that location will now be smaller homes. As one of the other residents stated, there's going to be almost 196% internal traffic generated by those newer, smaller homes. And it seems from a couple other people that spoke related to the current value, the current realtor who spoke, that there is a need for these larger homes, and that's what you bought there for, and that is your investment, however that investment goes. But we are, luckily, it seems like in this county and other counties, we are seeing an increase in that, which is good. And finally, I believe it was Mr. McClure, one of the first speakers, said, if you want to buy a Lanai home, you could almost go anywhere in the county, which I believe is true. However, if you're looking for a half acre or an acre, and you're looking for that look and feel of the county, this is one of the unique places you can go. And I think we need to preserve those areas instead of making everything look and feel the same. So that's just my feelings right now. Thank you.
Thank you. And please, this is a silent process. Thank you. Mr. Bauer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just following up with his opinions. I think everybody's gotten to know me pretty well. I'm about the feel and the nature of Manatee County. This is not a new plan, building out a completely new area that people would come into and they know exactly, all right, this area has more density, this area has less density. This is an area that was approved many years ago. It has been developed. People have moved in and have created their foundation for their families. There's several reasons why I just don't, I can't agree with this particular request. But I believe moving forward to the BOCC, one of the things that we have to do is we have to figure out, does it comply with the comp plan and LDC and so forth. And while they're approved for the special approvals in option A, I believe, in my opinion, the board, whether it's us or the BOCC, does not have to adopt those same special approvals for option B, because it's a brand new option. They don't just because you had them before, now you want to build more homes or what have you and more density. I understand the density conforms, but you still have the other special approvals, the perennial stream and the coastal high water hazard and all those things that you need special approval for still. So this is I see it as a brand new project. And from a technical aspect, if the board does not want to approve this, I think they can still carry over an argument that the special approvals required for the new option B potential, they do not have to approve those special requirements. So I think that's where I'm at.
Thank you, Mr. Bauer.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Horrigan.
And I agree with my two colleagues that the special approvals that are required are actually getting a larger density. There's, in my opinion, there's not much wrong with a density that's a gross density of 1 unit per acre. That's, that's really fairly low. But because this is a existing development that has larger homes on larger lots, and then to take all the remaining density and cluster it in one area, which is actually closer to the water, I believe is problematic for me, and I would agree that it is not consistent.
Thank you, sir. Are there any other? Yes, Mr. Rutledge.
Yeah, and forgive me for being so new on the board, but it's frustrating to me that, and I appreciate your comments about having some professional experience. It's very challenging to have professional experience and know of these development companies and the individuals involved, and not be able to argue or contemplate the economic impounds, because I know as a homeowner, I'm always sensitive to that, whatever goes on. And but that's not my calling. I've been represented to say not to use that as my guideline, I understand it. It's difficult when the staff recommends professionally, and I can't imagine that I could compete with any of our staff in their professionalism or skills when they recommend something not to recommend it. I also find it a bit challenging when the criteria is very refined and says your comments are related to specifically certain categories of activity. Emotionally, I get it. And I live in a half-acre lot, and I have sandhill cranes, and I have a big soft-shell turtle that scares that tar out of my wife in the morning. But that's not what I was called to do here, and I'm challenged in a lot of ways because as a real estate professional, it bothers me that that's not my request to advise you on financials. So I think it was well presented by both sides. I think it's very clear, the questions in front of us. I chafe a little under my constraints. This is not new for me personally, so I appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr.
everybody.
Rutledge.
Mr. Chairman, one more comment. I think on the same vein, that earlier in our work session, we were told that we were here because we have 7 sets of eyes that have a lot of experience in planning and real estate and development. And to use that expertise and reach back for that. And so that's what I do when I think about these issues. And I'm as challenged as you are about the inability to be able to use that, to vocalize that in these meetings.
Thank you, Mr. Horgan.
Mr. Chair,
Ms. LaCour.
I always disagree, don't I? I don't agree with a lot of the discussion about what the market may or may not do. I also don't think that construction traffic is really relevant. What I do think, though, is that I'm very concerned all the time about someone's rights when they buy a property. That includes the developer and a homeowner. And I think that you have to do due diligence. One of the gentlemen spoke and said, you can't talk about what might happen on property you don't own. I think excellent due diligence would have told these home buyers that this is what they were buying into. It wasn't speculated. The developer had not early on broken this into different parts and different parcels and different phases that were yet to be planned. There's construction approval in place. If you made that decision to buy there, you pretty much knew what you were buying. And I think that this changes what people bought. So for that reason, I don't support the change either.
Okay.
Now, do we have to vote option A and B, or just option A? Or
We have to vote the application as submitted.
So, Mr. Chair, I make a motion.
Ms.
Oh, you want to move? No?
Prior to that, is there any other deliberation? Okay.
I'd let him do it.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I just want to answer
Ms.
Mrs.
Shen.
Leslie's question. If the motion is denied, nothing's approved, the existing approvals remain in place, which is the existing plan. I just was saying that.
Option A, yeah.
Yeah. Do you want me to read the converse of what's in here, if it's a motion to deny, and just for the record?
Yes. Well, should we have a motion first?
Well, I was trying to help make the several of these words change, and it's a little bit complicated the way I'm looking at it here.
That sounds presumptive that there's
She was
going to
counting
I'd like,
I'm just
I'd like
asking.
Sarah to make the motion, to phrase the motion
I'm
so
just
that
gonna
I might
phrase
make it.
It may not even get a second. I'm just.
Okay, please do.
Based upon the staff report, Evans presented comments made at the public hearing and find the request to be inconsistent with the Manatee County Comprehensive Plan and the Manatee County Land Development Code as conditioned herein. I move to recommend denial of Manatee County zoning ordinance number PDR 1419G and denial of a new general development plan for phases Roman 4-C and Roman 5 as option B, with stipulations A1 through 13, B1 through 13, C1 through 8, D1 through 5, E1 through 3, and denial of special approval for a project adjacent to a perennial stream and partially in 25-year floodplain, 2 partially in the coastal high hazard area, and 3 partially in the coastal evacuation area, and to not adopt findings for specific approval for the new option B. Is option B the new one?
Yes, ma'am.
The new option B as alternatives to LDC 907942, cul-de-sac length exceeding 100 feet for streets M&T, and LDC section 603745, deletion of perimeter buffer, period.
So moved.
Motion is made by Ms. Lakoyak and
Second.
second by Mr. Rhodes. We'll call it to a vote. All those in favor of denial, please state your support.
Aye.
Chair votes nay. Motion carries for denial. And just for the record,
I'm a denial.
oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Rutledge is a denial. For the record, my denial is based on the fact that it does meet comprehensive plan and the LDC and staff supports it. Although if I were a resident, I wouldn't like it, but I have to judge it by the requirements presented to us. So, Mr. Rutledge, would you like to voice your?
I think you said it
Action.
well. I may not like the direction of my coach, but I know what my coach told me to consider, so.
Thank you, sir.
Again, thanks for your presentation, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. So the motion carries for denial. We're going to take a little bit of a recess while we clear the room and allow us to use the restroom. So we're going to take a 5-minute recess. We'll be back at
That's a lot of
11:15.
information.
Ballet.
All right, we're resuming the public hearing. Are we done? Is that it? Is that everything we had? I think we're on item 4. Actually, item 3, for the record, was pulled.
Was pulled by the applicant.
By the applicant. So we're on to item number 4. Mr. Meyer, would you please read item 4 into the
Yes,
record?
Mr. Chair. Item 4 is PDW-01-01, which is DTS number 2013-0126, Parrot Cove Marina. It's approving an amendment to a preliminary site plan to allow a single-family residence on one parcel and a marina on the remaining portion of approximately 0.45 acres located at 11510 36th Avenue West, Bradenton, subject to amended stipulations as conditions of approval, setting forth findings.
Thank you, Mr. Meyer. A couple house cleaning, or housekeeping, not house cleaning, housekeeping items. Please be mindful of the time limits. I think we should all get together and buy Mr. Grimes a watch and might get out of here a little quicker. But with regard to lunch, it's 11:15 now. We've got several more items on the agenda. What is the pleasure of the board? Should we take a lunch break or work through? I think it must be noted, though, that 2 of the items are related to DRI, which I have no idea what the time element associated with those would be, but what's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I have to leave by 1 o'clock at the latest, so my option would be to go forward.
Okay, and Mr. Bauer indicated he has to leave at 11. I'm sorry, 12:10.
I'm about the same.
Okay.
To get to
All right, so we'll power through. So, okay, thank you very much. All right, Mr. Meyer, thank you for reading that into the record. First of all, are there any ex parte communications that need to be disclosed? Seeing none, staff, you're up. Opening comments.
Good morning, Commissioners. Still morning. Shelley Hamilton, planner with Building and Development Services, and I have been sworn. Most of you will recall, you heard this back in March of 2014, and there was a recommendation from you in the applicant, and before he went to the board, he wanted to try to resolve your concerns, and he went back to the drawing board and did some changes to his concept plan, which he will explain, and wants to come back to you to try to get your support of what he's trying to do. In addition to the update memo, I need to amend one of the stipulations that we changed, and that is stipulation A4 needs to read as follows. Any public use of the boat ramp shall be prohibited, and then you cross out everything until the site plan. You say unless the site plan is amended to provide for adequate boat trailer parking, and that is all.
Do we have a hard copy of your suggested?
Of the changes that I just read,
Okay, all right.
I can give you what I wrote.
It's in your staple, last page.
Okay,
That was at the recommendation of the county attorney.
okay, thank you. I just wanted to make sure that we had information relative to the modification.
And
when
I
it
apologize
comes
because
time.
I'm hard of hearing today, so you're going to have to say your questions louder than usual. And I will attempt to answer correctly.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Hamilton.
The applicant and his representative are here to come up.
Okay, thank you. Yes, ma'am.
That's stipulation A8 that she further amended? Yes.
Yes.
A8. A3 or A8? Okay, further amended. Okay, thank you, sorry. Applicant, if you would, please come up and make your presentation, and if you would, again, state your name and that you've been sworn prior to beginning your presentation.
Good morning. I'm Marie McCon, and I have been sworn.
Thank you.
I'm here to represent
Mr. Bob Gertz and the Parrot Cove Marina. Mr. Gertz purchased this marina 11 years ago. At that time, it was an operating marina. It came into existence in 1960, and it has continued to operate since that time. At the time of purchase, the marina was in very poor condition and was very run down. Since that time, Mr. Gertz has spent in excess of $500,000 to improve the marina and to bring it back into good operating condition. This includes reconstruction of dockage as well as necessary dredging, which was permitted through the DEP. Mr. Gertz has been working on obtaining this approval for over 2 years. The current request or change of the specific request is to divide the property into 2 partials, and the concern of the Planning Commission at the last meeting was that these 2 partials could possibly become 2 separate marinas. I believe that has been, I don't know how to turn this on. That has been, oh, that's not very good, taken care of with this new or revised request. This is the property. This is where the division line would be. This would be the marina, and this would only be for Mr. Gertz's personal residential use. It's stipulated that in your package of stipulations, so he could not change and make that 2 marinas without everybody coming back to see you. And I don't think that you would allow that. A lot of the changes that have happened over the last 2 years are that Mr. Gertz has been working closely with staff and has been making changes based on staff's recommendations. He has also listened to staff in what other issues have come up. They've had the neighborhood complain that the place looks run down. The place, believe me, no longer looks run down. It is in pristine condition, and if necessary, I can show you photos of that. There has been questions regarding the dockage and the water and the sewer. Both sites have separate water and sewer. Both are connected. We will need no additional water and sewer issues. Mr. Gertz has worked very hard to get this to be right. There was the issue with a public boat ramp. It is now not a public boat ramp. Therefore, he's changed the proposal, so it's now not a public boat ramp. Therefore, there is no need for the trailer parking. Through this whole process, Mr. Gertz has listened to staff and has, in fact, changed his request to comply with staff's recommendation. So we are here today to ask you to approve this and to answer any questions that you may have. There are a few things Mr. Gertz would like to say. I don't really want to get back into more detail till we see if there's any issues that we need answers for.
Thank you. Mr. Gertz, please state your name and that you've been sworn.
Hi, my name is Bob Gertz, and yes, I have been sworn.
Thank you.
I just wanted to say that at the last hearing, I know there was a big concern by the committee that my property would end up as 2 marinas. There's been 1 marina there for over 50 years. I took that into consideration. I've changed the plan, so now there'll only be 1 marina, and then my own personal piece of property with my own dock that will not be a marina. It'll be for my use only. I know that was a big issue with the neighbors and with the board, and that's why I've changed the plan around. Aside from that, like Marie said, we'll just listen and see what people have to say. And hopefully, what I would like to do, the reason I want to split it is I live in that home on the marina property. I'm going to split that away from the marina so that eventually when I'm too old to work the marina, I can sell the marina off but keep my home and not be forced to move that out of it. And that's why I'm asking to split the property.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, sir. Are there any questions for the applicant?
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Mr. Bauer.
Just real quick, the issue regarding, I'm trying to remember some of the things back when, but the issue regarding the Sunny Shore homeowners, they're the ones that use the boat ramp, is that correct?
Well, it used to be a stipulation that I had to leave it open for the total general public, everybody. The county has now said that that's no longer required. I'm in the process of talking with the people in the community, trying to work out some kind of an arrangement for the use, for their personal use of the boat ramp where they won't be leaving trailers on my property for 40 or 50 years. The people in the community, when they put a boat in the boat ramp, they take their trailer home because it's just a couple blocks away. And that's what I'm trying to work out with them.
But it's not open to the public, is the bottom line.
No, it won't be open to the general public, and that's why I request not to have 3 trailer parking places.
Yes, sir.
A question, follow-up to Mr. Bauer's question. We indicate it's not a public boat ramp, but it was stated that it's not open to the public. It's a business that invites people in, and if you agree to allow them to use it, they could use it. Is that correct? As opposed to a public boat ramp
I mean, if
where-
I have a friend of mine who wants to use it, or?
No,
or-
it's a marina, correct? It's a
Yes.
business.
Right, I don't charge for the use, or I've never charged for the use of the boat ramp.
Okay. All right. I think it's, the distinction needs to be made between a public boat ramp where if you were to ask somebody to leave, they would not have to leave because it's public, as opposed to a business that it's private property, you invite people in, you can ask people to leave. I think that's the confusion
Okay,
amongst the board
I
with
think
the-
that's right. Yeah, the only people can use it with my permission.
Okay.
Right, okay.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay.
Any additional questions for the applicant? Okay, all right, thank you. Staff presentation?
Could I have my presentation, please? Wow. Okay, just to orient you, and I did this presentation previously, I've just modified it a bit, but for the benefit of our new planning commissioner and anyone else that can't remember from a year ago, I will be glad to go through it again. The property is located at the end of the driveways toward Sunny Shores, or surrounding Sunny Shores Mobile Home Park. The future land use of the property is Res 6, and the zoning of the property is PDW. Again, you heard this on March 13th, almost a year ago of 2014. The preliminary site plan has changed to split the property into 2 parcels, one for the residents, one for the marina. And there is a request for 36 boat slips. 4 of them will be on the private residence. 32 of them will be located at the marina. There will also be livable, are also requesting liveaboards and crushed shell in the parking area. This is the site plan of the combined parcels. The applicant has also provided site plans for the marina parcel and the home, the residence. The PDW zoning was approved in 2002, and that zoning was to validate the property as a marina, and it provided a layout of the features as they existed at the date of that application. There were specific approvals granted at that time for a reduction in the front yard setback, off-street parking and loading conditions that were allowed to remain in the condition that they existed at the time of the approval, deletion of a requirement for all vehicle use areas containing more than 1,000 square feet to be landscaped, deletion of a requirement for a 10-foot wide roadway buffer, and to allow foundation landscaping of less than 20 square feet per 1,000 square feet of proposed gross floor area. Staff at that time recognized that it was an existing marina, had existed since the late 1950s, and staff wanted to preserve that and allow him to continue with certain stipulations. As I stated, the facility has been in operation as a marina with boat slips since 1960, before 1960. We have mitigating measures in the staff report that include stipulations to ensure that the boat basin is not dredged or altered unless permission from the correct regulatory agency that has jurisdiction over that. And there's also a stipulation that includes the required water quality monitoring to ensure that Palmasola Bay is protected. There are specific approvals in place for the adjacent C2 Manatee River and the protection of the CHHA, CEA, and CPA overlay districts. I have some pictures. It is adjacent to a county park, and these are pictures of the park that it is adjacent to. This is still the county park, and I've taken some pictures of the property. This is the homestead property. We are not allowing him to do the kayak rentals on that property any longer. It would be up to code enforcement to go out and monitor that if they get a complaint that he's still selling kayaks or renting kayaks. This is the parking lot. This is the looking out into the waterfront on the marina side. And this was taken last year, and I've taken a picture that shows that his attempt to improve some of the landscaping and beautification of the property. This is a picture of the boat ramp, and it is not in question. It is not a public boat ramp. It is the stipulation that was on previously was carried forward from a federal or a lawsuit that is a personal issue between him and the Sunny Shores Mobile Home Park to regulate. Staff recommends approval of the application with 14 stipulations, including the changes that I have entered into the record today. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions for staff? Mr. Rutledge.
Forgive me, could you tell me what the alphabet soup was that you showed us, all the districts? I'm not sure I understand which all of those are.
Alphabet soup. I'm sorry. CHH is commercial high hazard, or coastal high hazard. CEA is an evacuation area, coastal evacuation area. And
Planning area.
CPA, coastal protection area.
Coastal planning.
And that is the alphabet soup that I did.
Thank you. Are there any additional questions for staff?
Can I have one other?
Mr. Rutledge.
Would you argue that the condition of the property is now improved since last year? Since I wasn't here last year, seeing the pictures, it's
That there are lots. This
the
is what you're
condition of
considering.
his property is improved since his
The
last
split
year's
is not approved.
No,
That is what you're here to.
I think Mr. Rutledge is more an aesthetic question.
aesthetic question. Yes, Sam.
Been cleaned up like where a problem was before.
One person at a time, please. And Robin can please help me.
They're asking if the property's been cleaned up since last year.
Yes, it has.
Okay.
I mean, to the point where he can. The property, he is limited there with what he can do, but it has been cleaned up. He's sodded his personal residence property, got rid of the dirt mound that was on. There were several code enforcement violations that he has completely addressed.
Mr. Rutledge, I think it needs to be mentioned that that's not part of this action right now. Although there were code enforcement issues, that's separate and apart from anything that's coming before the board today. That was not a requirement. Previously, it was denied. That wasn't a requirement of the denial. It just is effort on the part of the applicant.
Understood.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Mr. Bauer.
Mr. Chair, I just wanted to point out the record. I was out near this location about a month and a half ago. I don't know, just want full disclosure, showing my wife the dog park.
Okay.
But I just wanted to throw that out there.
I think if it were not for the purposes of investigating for this hearing, it's not ex parte, but it sounds like pleasure.
Well, ask your wife.
Any other questions for staff?
Yes, I'd like.
Mr. Horrigan.
These 3 trailer parking spaces, if they didn't have the 3 trailer parking spaces, where would people park with their trailers?
He doesn't have any trailer parking. He's removed that from the site plan.
There's no boat coming in anymore.
There are no trailer parking spaces there now, and we're saying if it ever becomes a boat ramp, that is what the stipulation is saying. If it ever does, if he does turn it into a public boat ramp, he will have to revise the plan and show us, demonstrate to us that he is providing those 3 boat trailer parking spaces.
Right, let's allow the applicant to testify with regard to how they're going to operate, but currently there's not a place to park from what we've seen in testimony, but the applicant can further address that in their rebuttal.
I understand that, but it's not going to become we're not approving a public boat ramp.
So there's no
But
need.
why does it become an issue? He would have to come back again, would he not, in order to put a boat ramp, a public boat ramp in there?
Again, I think
Correct.
the definition of public is being questioned. He could allow somebody to come in, drop a boat in the water, and then they have to park elsewhere because there is no place to park their trailer, and their boat could then stay there. But again, this is something.
The applicant can address how he deals with boat trailer parking at this point.
And my comment is based on the testimony I heard. I don't know anything different than what I heard and read, so, thank you. Okay, thank you, staff. Public comments. Got a couple folks signed up for public, to make public comments. Mr. Ted Reich, if you would, please step up to the mic, state your name and that you've been sworn.
My name is Ted Reich. I have been sworn.
Thank you, sir.
A year ago, tomorrow, as a matter of fact, I spoke at some length in opposition to the two-marina plan that was the applicant's suggestions at the time. That having been eliminated, and only now what we see before us, the residential plus a potential for there being a separate marina in future, I can speak totally in favor of the recommended motion. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Wright? Seeing none, thank you, sir. Thank you. Next up is Gerard Gunther. Is that correct, sir? That's close enough. Thank you, sir. If you would, please step up, state your name, and if you've been sworn. You can climb over the table, that's fine.
You're fine. Hi, my name is Gerard Gunther, and I have been sworn.
Thank you, sir.
A couple questions that maybe can be answered, after I'm off the mic is, number one, where does if the owner sells a marina, where is the office going to be located if it's no longer located in his home? I don't quite understand it, and I'm not sure it's that big of a deal. Number two, the boat launch. I found some interesting things that were talked about today, like it's prohibited from public use, but if the owner, who I do not know, by the way, I just moved in a year ago, I like old Florida residences. My wife and I both moved into the Sagamore Estates and fixed up our home. And we're praying that other people do the same thing so that it can be a really nice old Florida neighborhood. But relative to the boat ramp, I heard interesting comments that it's closed to the public, but then I heard comments, well, if I say they can come in, they can come in. Well, under the buddy system, they're coming in. And you know where they're parking? On my street. Buddies are allowed to come in, evidently. Last year, I had the same truck and trailer parked in front of my home almost every day. We're going to be permanent residents. We went back home to tie up some loose ends and try to sell our house up north. Came back down, and that truck and trailer was still there, but it wasn't parked in front of our home. It was parked up the street a little bit. Yesterday, I noticed another truck and trailer parked behind it. So I'm having a lot of trouble understanding who gets to use the boat ramp and where do they park, okay? Now, if you let a friend or a buddy or a longtime user of the boat ramp still come, what are they supposed to do with their trailers? Park it in Sagamore Estates. Do you know what Sagamore Estates is? Sunny Shores is a park of trailer homes, and it's usually, they're fixing those up too, one by one. But next to it is 4 streets that were built in the 50s, and that's called Sagamore Estates. They're bringing the boat trailers over there and parking on a street. The buddies. It's not widespread. Some of these guys who come in there and use that boat ramp fish for a living. They must go over to Cortez and sell their fish. but they are not residences. I'm sure of it. Relative, well, that's for discussion, and I think it's a valid discussion point. And the very last thing is
Yes, sir.
paving of the parking lot. I don't quite understand where that's at right now. Does it still have to be a crushed stone parking lot, or is he allowed to pave it?
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you
Thank
for your
you.
comments. Hold on. Are there any questions for Mr. Gunther? I do have a question. Is Sagamore, the neighborhood, are they public roads or are they
Public
private
roads.
roads? Okay, thank you.
What did he say?
Public roads. Thank you. All right. Is there anybody else in the audience who wishes to speak on this matter? If you would, please come up to the podium. Is there anybody? Yes, sir. If you would, come up, state your name and if you've been sworn.
I haven't been sworn.
Okay.
My name is John Warner.
Okay. You've not been sworn. If there's anybody else in the audience who wishes to be sworn in, please rise. Please rise, sir.
Do you swear or affirm that the factual statements and factual representations which you're about to present to this board will be truthful and accurate?
Yes.
Thank you. I'm sorry, sir. What was your name for the record?
John Warner.
John Warner, and we saw you.
I'm a resident of Sunny Shores, homeowners, and I've been in there 10 years. And my only concern is, I know he wants to divide the property, and when he divides the property, it's going to take on a whole new challenge because he's going to sell it to someone else, and the ramp is on the part that he's going to sell. So my only problem with it, what are going to be the legalities of our association using that ramp? And the ramp was built by the association, even though it was on private land. The home association built the ramp. So what happens if you divide the property and he decides to sell? Does the legalities of it?
Okay.
That's going to be just another.
Yes, sir. Are there any additional concerns you would like to get on the record?
Just that our park would have the easement rights of using that. Since it's been built since the 50s and used by the park since the 50s, are we not grandfathered in some sort of law?
Again, if you don't have any additional questions, I'll state what Ms. Schenk is going to tell you. She can't provide legal guidance.
Okay.
So you'll have to speak with an attorney that will then research the information and provide you direction.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Is there anybody else who wishes to come forward and speak in opposition or in favor of this application? Sir. Yes, sir. If you would, please state your name and if you've been sworn.
Gene France, and I've lived in Sunny Shores since '89, and I have been sworn in.
Thank you, sir.
I'm not really worried about what Mr. Gertz does with the marina. But we do have a paper from when they went to court and the judge gave us an easement for the 25-foot ramp, boat ramp. And we did put the cement in and everything, and we have used it. And I don't think that we should lose that. He gave it to Sunny Shores and Sagamore Estates.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And again, the advice from your attorney should be sought out, and with regard to rights that are associated with easements, that's not an action that the board can really influence at this point. Those are civil matters that need to be.
But this was gave to us by a judge.
Right, and again, that's a civil matter, not a part of this board
Okay.
hearing, but I understand your concern, and I would suggest you speak with an attorney. Thank you, sir.
Can I ask?
Mr. Rutledge, yes.
Ask a question, Ms. Shank. To the extent that we don't have any specific knowledge of a condition and our zoning might breach a judge order, do we have knowledge of that? Do we consider that? Or do we strictly follow the guidelines? Does it meet our criteria?
No, the county attorney's office has researched the matter, and we are recommending the staff stipulation A8 that any public use of the boat ramp shall be prohibited. because we look at the land use issue, is there parking for the boat ramp, and there's not.
Right.
And there's a potential for adverse impacts off-site if we allow the parking of trailers all over the place. That's our limit of our review.
Right, and the county attorney
We
county
can't-
attorney's office is making no interpretation on rights associated with the,
No, and the county can't force one private developer to provide an easement to another private party. If Mr. Gerst wants to provide Sunny Shore as an easement, he's free to do so. Nothing we do today prohibits that. Nothing we do today requires it. That's a
right.
private issue.
right, okay, thank you for the clarification, so. All right, staff closing comments.
One of the speakers, Shelley Hamilton, planner with Building and Development Services, one of the speakers had questions regarding the office and the crushed shell, whether the parking lot would remain crushed shell. There is some clarification to what would be allowed for the parking. It is stipulation B2 that clarifies that the crushed shell would be, or any other suitable pervious surface that ensures a smooth or dustless surface, and that would be up to the Public Works Department to regulate that. But what he has is a crushed shell parking lot now. And the other thing about the office, I will defer to the applicant to offer more insight into what is planned for the office.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Just a question, going back to the property, currently, how many spaces are in that crushed parking lot for parking purposes?
It's the
Or
site
pro-
plan as it exists shows 16 parking spaces. That is
16.
what would be required
That's-
for the marina of that size.
So it meets the code. Those parking spaces meet the slips that are there and available.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Again, just one follow-up before the applicant's rebuttal. The marina as a separate parcel of property does not require an office for operation, does it?
There is no requirement in the Land Development Code that requires an office. He has an office now. It is in the upper story of the home that he has.
Right.
But I will leave it to him to explain how that would happen, what will happen with that if and when he sells the property.
Okay, thank you.
Could I ask one other question?
Mr. Rutledge, yes, please.
Yes, ma'am. If the, and I know this is not a public ramp, but if we were approving a public ramp, is there a guideline for how many parking spaces would be required?
There is nothing in our code that requires any type of additional parking for boat trailers. No.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, thank you. Any other questions for staff? Anything? Okay. Applicant, if you would, please step up and present your rebuttal. And
Hi, I'll just be really quick to address a few things. As
Yes,
far
sir.
as the office, there is another building, if, well, you notice on the east end of the property, there's a building there. Half of it is a bathroom, the other half can be an office. As far as the gentleman back there saying my buddies use the street, I don't have a choice right now. It was made mandatory that I have to leave the boat ramp open for general public. That's what we're trying to change right now. So it's not a thing that I'm giving people permission to use it. I've been told I had to leave it open, and we're trying to change that right now. As far as with the neighbors, I'm trying to work that out. The lawsuit that was referenced wasn't with me. It was with the previous owner of the marina. So I had nothing to do with that. And I'll let Marie take over from here.
thank you. Thank you.
In regard to the office, there's no requirement in the Land Development Code that they have an on-site office. So I don't think the office for the marina as a separate partial is a concern. If they wanted an office, they'd go to the building department, they'd do a site plan, they'd get plan approval, they'd have to do the proper county procedures to be able to build a building for an office if they didn't use the existing building. I do want to show you a couple of pictures just so you have a general idea of what we look like here.
Right, those pictures will be entered into the record. You'll provide those to the clerk afterwards, please.
Provide them.
Thank you.
But as you can see, the place looks pretty good. the boat ramp and people parking in front in Sycamore Estates, call the police department. If somebody's parking on the right-of-way, that's not Mr. Gertz's problem. He's not the one that polices that. The police department polices illegal parking. He cannot allow people to park their trailers on his property. If he lets Sunny Shores people put their boats in, they're supposed to bring their trailers back home to wherever their boat was before. It's only a couple of blocks. They can walk back. There's no grandfather, so there's no grandfathering in of using the boat ramp. I don't know what else I can say. Mr. Gertz has worked very diligently to try to address all of staff's concerns and staff's issues. That's why he's back here today, to try to get this property divided up in a way that staff could recommend approval, that it met with the concerns and the regulations of the Land Development Code and the Comprehensive Plan.
Thank
Any
you.
questions?
Thank you. Are there any questions for the applicant? If not, I'm going to close the public hearing and we're going to open it up for deliberations. I'll start off. It seems there's a lot of legal issues that are ancillary to the use of this facility. I would recommend both Mr. Gertz and any of the neighbors associated with either Sagamore Estates or the Sunny Shores. Is that that they maybe seek out legal counsel, but with regard to the information that's been presented to us, it seems to be consistent. This plan now seems to be consistent with the comprehensive plan and the land development code. So, but it seems like we're getting wrapped up in all the ancillary things. So that's just my observation. Yes, Mr. Rutledge.
It does, Ms. Shank, forgive me, but it doesn't seem like these approvals breach any kind of, they don't breach any kind of code or affirmation of rights that anybody else has that we're aware of. I mean, that's not really the question. The question is, does this meet our code, right?
Correct. We're just allowing a few modifications, well, some modifications to the previous stipulations. We can't mandate that other parties give other private parties easements.
And not responsible for FDEP, all the other people that riparian rights and all those things. We don't find any issues with those. Those are with a different agency.
Well, we have information that the state reviewed the submerged land lease issue separately, and that's a state issue with FDEP.
But that's not before us.
No, we can't grant rights that are with DEP. So thank you. Thank you. Mr. Horgan.
A question for Ms. Shank. There's nothing that we do that grants easements ever, is there?
No, sometimes if
We
like
don't take 'em
you're along
away.
University Parkway, it's two commercial projects, there's a code requirement for a cross-access easement between the two commercial projects to avoid accessing University Parkway in too many driveways. You often see that with commercial projects. You only see two residential projects or residential and a commercial where the residents have a right over. Remember when we had that Bayshore Gardens mini warehouse thing and the residents behind wanted to cross-access easement over it? We don't get into that.
I guess I'm done.
No, me.
Any easements proposed by the applicant are going to come before us, I think is what Ms. Shank is saying.
You need to have a nexus in the code to require it. And there is like a code requirement along University Parkway to have cross-access between two commercial parcels.
Okay,
All
thank
right. Any additional thoughts or input on this application?
I have a motion.
Mr. DeLesline.
I move to recommend the approval of the PDW 01-01 PR per the recommended motion in the staff report and the updated 8.8 in the memo.
Okay, thank you.
And Mr. Chair, it's also 8.3.
Mr.
In the update
DeLesline?
memo.
do you
And
agree?
8, yes.
Okay, thank you. Motion's amended.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Horgan. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. It's unanimous. Is it unanimous? Okay. It's unanimous. So thank you very much. Thanks. All right. Next item on the agenda. If I can, thank you, sir.
Mr. Chair, forgive me.
Yes, Mr. Bauer.
I want to take off. I don't think I can be any good for the next 10 minutes.
Okay,
Unless you think so on this.
Probably not.
Kind of lengthy.
Thank you.
All right.
Ms. Lakoyak, you
Same, thank
two are departing. Do we, we've got a quorum, right? So, okay,
I'm
thank
going
you.
to be leaving, so.
What, What time were you leaving, Mr.
Well,
Furman?
I have to leave by 1 o'clock. I don't know if I can be much help.
Oh.
if
You
I
still
don't-
have 4.
Yeah, let's, what is a quorum, I'm sorry, for the
Well,
planning
if
commission?
possible, since the DRI is quasi-judicial, if you could stay for it, it would be helpful. I don't see a lot of people here opposing it. It may not take that long.
Okay.
Okay, all right, thank you. All right, we're gonna go to the next item. Mr. Meyer, if you would, please read it into the record.
I'm going to go ahead and read both of the companion
Okay.
pieces in, and then
Shall we hear both items together?
Yes, then vote on them separately.
Okay, thank you.
just for time, I think.
All right, please note, we're hearing items number 5 and 6 together.
Item number 5, Mr. Chair, is ordinance 15-14, which was changed from 14-45. This is Robinson Gateway DRI number 29. It's approval of a one-phase development of regional impact to allow the following maximum development: 542 residential units, 900,000 square feet of retail space, 600,000 square feet of office space, 1,750 seats are 130,680 square feet of movie theater, and 350 rooms are 219,800 square feet for hotels, with a proposed build-out date of 2025 located on the north side of Moccasin Wallow Road, east of I-75 and west of Carter Road at 6750 and 7350 Moccasin Wallow Road, North Palmetto. The companion item is PDMU-15-14, which used to be PDMU 13-01(Z)(G), and DTS number 2013-0029 Robinson Gateway. And this is a rezone of approximately 288 acres from A1 suburban agriculture, 1 dwelling unit per acre, to PDMU Planned Development Mixed Use Zoning District, and approval of a general development plan for a regional serving project to include the previously mentioned 542 units, 900,000 square feet of retail, 600,000 square feet of office, 1,750 seats or 130,000 square feet of movie theater, 350 rooms or 219,800 square feet of hotels located on the north side of Moccasin Wallow Road, east of I-75.
Thank you, Ms. Meyer. Are there any ex parte disclosures?
I'd like to disclose that I'm aware of this project through a client that was interested in this area for development for a movie theater. I never talked to the owners. I've only seen the stuff that was on the web, but I have seen that.
Okay, thank you. I don't think that's going to be an issue. Anything else? Okay, thank you. Staff, if you would, please do an introduction of this project.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and other members of the Planning Commission. I'm Stephanie Moreland, and I have been sworn. The applicant is here, and they're going to do their presentation first.
Thank you.
And then staff would follow.
Thank you. Applicant, Mr. Robinson, if you would, please state your name and if you've been sworn.
Thank you, Stephanie. Members of the Planning Commission, my name is Will Robinson, and I have been sworn. It's a pleasure. It's been a few, maybe years since I've been in front of you. It's a pleasure to be here in front of you this morning. I think it's still morning. We're providing you an amazing opportunity and development that we think will be an accoutrement to North County and the parish area. I'm actually substituting for Ed Vogler, who's in trial. There is no coincidence that my last name is Robinson, and it is called Robinson Gateway. I'd like to introduce my father, back there, Bill Robinson, who's actually owned the property since 1988. He made me farm it for several summers in the early 90s. And before that, the Pursley tree family and turf family owned the property, so it's been traditionally farmed for several decades. Has already been provided, we are seeking 2 requests or 2 approvals from you all today. Approval of the Robinson Gateway DRI, and also approval of a general development plan and a rezoning. As I just previously mentioned to you, we believe this is the ideal location and property for the Robinson Gateway. It provides a mix of uses, commercial, retail, restaurant, that are vital and essential for the North County area. We certainly agree with the staff report that the timing of this request is appropriate and consistent with development trends in the area. The property is a perfect site for this development. There are no wetlands on it. Utilities currently serve the project. We agree with all stipulations in your staff report and certainly agree with your professional staff's recommendation of approval. To follow me will be Rachel Layton, who'll take you through the nuts and bolts of the site plan and other matters, but we're available for questions. And we may go slightly over our 15-minute, but we have two items, but we'll try to be as concise as we can.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Ms. Layton, if you would, please state your name.
Absolutely. Rachel Layton, I have been sworn. I'm the Director of Planning with ZNS Engineering, and I'm here on behalf of MW Gateway and the Robinson family to make a presentation to you this afternoon on both the DRI and the GDP. And I'd like to cover the DRI material first and then bring you into the GDP. So I'm going to try and be within the time limits. I know we've had some things go over a little bit today. So I do have a slideshow for you this morning. And again, we're here for the DRI, which is Ordinance 1514, and the rezone to General Development Plan Standards PDR 1504ZG. And you can see from this aerial here, we're located about 2 miles south of the county border, where the property is here in the red, just east of I-75, north of Moccasin Wallow Road, and follows the border of Carter Road there. It's 288 acres of property. Development trends for this area include numerous planned development projects, both mixed use and residential. We have Gateway North, just to the west of I-75, and that's a DRI. We also have Parish Lakes to the southeast of the project area, and that's a pending DRI. Property, as Will told us this morning, has been used historically as a tree farm and active farming. If you go out there now, that's what you would see. There are no wetlands with this property. Future land use categories, we have 3 of them on this property. We have mixed use, we have urban fringe 3, UF3, and we also have the PSP, which is the public, semi-public designation on the property. As you can see from the future land use map, there are multiple future land use categories in the surrounding area also. The properties to the west and north of the site are designated UF3. To the south of the site, the property is designated MU and ROR, and then further to the south, Res 6. Property to the east of the interstate is designated MU. The project does meet the intent of the MU and UF3 policies as identified in the comprehensive plan. The property is currently zoned A1, Agricultural Suburban District, but planned development projects have been approved to the north, south, east, and west, leaving this in a pocket of A1 zoning. To the southeast, that Parish Lakes DRI is pending, so in the future you will see that in front of you. The DRI entitlements include 320 single-family attached residential units, 222 multifamily residential units, 900,000 square feet of retail space, 600,000 square feet of office space, a 1,750 seat movie theater, and 350 hotel rooms. This is our Map H. We've colored it for presentation purposes today. As depicted on Map H, the residential uses will be located throughout the project. The maximum height for the residential area is shown in blue, and that follows, it circles around. I don't know if you guys can follow my cursor here. Oh. But we've got all of this residential here tucked in and away from some of the areas that are more mixed use. And those buildings will be 35 feet in height. It's anticipated that the multifamily residential units will be located above the office retail spaces identified here in orange that run through the middle of the project and along Moccasin Wallow closer to the interstate. The project is designed as a walkable community to encourage a live-work environment. A 30-acre community park is also included in the design, and open space areas are designed throughout the project. So all along Carter Road, we've got a 30-acre park proposed, as well as connection to the Ellington Willow Trail that the county has proposed. The movie theater, shown in yellow, is centrally located within the project. There are 2 hotels proposed within the project. One hotel is located closer to the interstate, over here, and then the other one is located closer to the roundabout. 4 parking garages are proposed behind the retail, office, residential areas, with shared parking shown in brown. Stormwater serves as a buffer along I-75 and is designed as required by the county for the general development plan. Utilities exist within the right-of-way of Moccasin Wallow Road to include a 30-inch and 12-inch water mains, 20-inch sanitary force main, a 20-inch reclaimed water line. So all of those utilities are in place and will serve the project as it stands. This is a conceptual plan from early on. You can kind of see how the buildings would be laid out. The DRI application was originally submitted in December of 2010. So this has been a very long-term project with many agencies reviewing the application. In October of 2014, the Tampa Bay Regional Planning Council approved the project. The DRI application is consistent with the Land Development Code, the State Comprehensive Plan, the Tampa Bay Regional Planning Council's Future of the Region, a Strategic Regional Policy Plan, and the Manatee County Comprehensive Plan. Multiple state agencies and regional agencies reviewed the DRI application during the process with Tampa Bay Regional Planning Council and provided no objections. What we're requesting today is approval of a single-phase project with an established build-out date of December 31st, 2025. A few notable DRI recommended conditions include development commencement date to coincide with a period of 5 years from the development order adoption date. Additionally, conditions require the provision of the 30-acre community open space park and recreational facility and the connection to the Ellington Willow Trail along Carter Road. The conditions also require preparation and submittal of a stormwater management plan and parks master plan, conducting surface and groundwater quality monitoring, and mitigation to offset impacted roadway segments and intersections. I'd like to note here that the traffic reports have been approved by county staff as well as been reviewed by DOT and numerous consultants. The project is also including voluntary affordable housing, workforce housing program. Up to 54 of the proposed 542 residential units will be set aside for the affordable and workforce housing program. Staff has prepared their staff report recommending approval of the application with stipulations. We're in agreement with everything that's in the development order. They've worked extensively with our team over the last few years to make this project a reality for the Robinson family, for MW Gateway. And I'm going to move to the GDP now. Okay, so for the rezoning, we are going from A1 again to plan development mixed use to general development plan standards for PDMU 1504, parent Z, parent G. And this has been running concurrently with the DRI application. The general development plan follows map H of the DRI, providing more detail to address both the comprehensive plan and the land development code requirements. The project is designed for mixed-use development, including the vertical integration of uses. This form of development allows for more cohesive community, allowing people to live and work in their neighborhoods. Again, the general development plan includes 542 residential units, 900,000 square feet of retail space, 600,000 square feet of office space, a 1,750-seat movie theater, 350 hotel rooms, 30 acres of community park, 4 parking garages, and surface parking to be shared. The property is designated MU, UF3, and PSP. These uses are allowed in those districts. The land use operative provision for gross density and intensity is met with the project when there are multiple future land use categories. For the intensity of the project, UF3 allows for maximum FAR of 0.23. MU allows for maximum FAR of 1.0. The project is proposing a floor area ratio of 0.15 FAR. The proposed intensity is well below the maximum established in the comprehensive plan. For density, UF3 allows a maximum gross density of 3 dwelling units per acre. MU allows for a maximum gross density of 9 dwelling units per acre. The maximum density proposed is 1.88 dwelling units per acre. The proposed density is well below the maximum established in comprehensive plan. I went through all those items, and it is a neo-traditional development. They really desire this to be a live-work environment. Project boundary buffers: to the north, we're proposing 50 feet. To the east, along Carter Road, 100-foot buffer. To the south, 50 and 65 feet from Moccasin Wallow Road. And to the west, 50 feet from I-75. Residential setbacks include, we have 2 different options. We have one for an alley and one without. So where we have the alley, we would have a 10-foot front yard setback with a corresponding 25-foot rear setback to allow for utilities and parking. And then on the, we would also offer a traditional design for 20-foot front-loaded garages with 15-foot setback in the rear. Commercial setbacks are proposed at 25 feet for the front, side yard 10 foot, rear 15, with a waterfront setback of 30 feet. Maximum building heights for the project include the residential buildings that I showed you earlier in blue will be 35 feet, which is in accordance with plan development regulations. Mixed-use buildings of 40 to 60 feet, those are more internal to the project. Hotel would be 60 feet maximum, and the movie theater would be 57. The parking structures would be 40 feet. And again, all of these that are above the 35-foot height would be within the project boundaries. And those, again, are 50-foot minimums around the project. Open space required is 30% because we're in an entranceway. We're providing 34%. We have a lot of nearby development approvals. I was surprised when I saw all of the lists that Stephanie had put together for how many approvals really are coming in that area. While only a few projects have been built, the highest density is for the Woods of Moccasin Wallow at 5.44 dwelling units per acre, but it seems to be the average is between 1 and 2 dwelling units per acre, which is compatible with the project that we're offering today. This range of density allows for a variety of single-family housing products, and it's the cornerstone of successful master plan communities similar to Lakewood Ranch, which is one of the most successful DRIs in our community. Allowing for a range of densities, this will allow for strong community as encouraged by Comprehensive Plan Policy 2.9.1. The project also includes access points. We have 2 points of connection along Moccasin Wallow and 1 along Carter Road. We have an inter-neighborhood tie that's proposed to the north. The project is designed to meet the goals, objectives, and policies of the comprehensive plan. We are requesting special approvals for this project. It's a normal part of the plan development process to ask for special approvals so that the staff is aware and gives thorough review to these items. The project is in the mixed-use future land use category. We're offering a mixed-use project in the UF3 future land use category. Our gross density exceeds 1 dwelling unit per acre in UF3. And it exceeds the net residential density of 3 units per acre in UF3. It also allows us for us to request a non-residential project exceeding 30,000 square feet in UF3 and a project in an entranceway. And again, special approval is granted through the plan development process as regulated by the comprehensive plan. In summary, the staff has reviewed the application for the rezoning to PDMU and general development plan standards. Manatee County staff have reviewed the plan for consistency with both comprehensive plan and the land development code and have found the project in compliance. The traffic impact analysis has been approved by Manatee County, and Manatee County School District provided confirmation that available capacity exists in Service Area 1. We've worked very closely with staff over the last several years to get the project in front of the Planning Commission and hopefully the Board of County Commissioners next. And we have received a positive staff report, and we are in agreement with all of the zoning ordinance stipulations. We respectfully request the Planning Commission recommend approval of both the application for development approval for development of regional impact and the rezoning to PDMU to general development plan standards. And that concludes my presentation today. Thank you.
Very good.
With
Thank you.
18 seconds to spare.
Is there anything else you'd like to cover for 18 seconds?
Thank
you
you.
very much. Are there any questions for the applicant? Okay, very good. Staff presentation, do you have anything to augment the presentation by the applicant?
This is Stephanie Moreland again, and I have been sworn. I was going to ask your permission. She has covered what I would have said. So I'm going to ask your permission. We concur with what she has given in the staff report. We agree with what she has said. And so I'm asking your permission to me not doing the presentation.
Sure. Is that what you're asking? Okay, very good. Are there any questions? If we have any questions that come up during the discussion, then staff can address them, of course. But do we have any questions of the applicant or staff? Anything? I do have one question. This is considered a, I think, a limited access, DOT's limited access. Is that correct, Mr. Davis? Or it falls within that area? a long meeting, this.
For the record, Clark Davis, Transportation Planning Manager, and I have been sworn. The limited access facilities in the area are I-75 and a portion of Moccasin Wallow leading up to where Buffalo Road connects today.
Okay. And the plan is consistent with that consideration. Is that what we understand?
There's a development order condition proposed for the DRI that would require them to do essentially an operational analysis, looking at their access that aligns with Buffalo Road and making adjustments as necessary to make sure it doesn't cause those kinds of conflicts. It doesn't use those words exactly, but it's what's being contemplated by the condition.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Mr. Rutledge?
How long have you been in this process?
The application was filed in December of 2010. So it's been more than 4 years' worth of work to get the project here.
If I would add that the applicant requested to be put on hold during that review process. That's not the county's delay.
I'm not finding fault. I love people with
I'm not
tenacity.
saying that it's been a long process. I inherited the project 2 years ago when I took over Tom McCullum's role at ZNS Engineering. So Stephanie and I have done a great job in the last 2 years moving the project to public
Oh,
hearing.
so it's only 2 years. Oh, great.
Well, it's been on file for much longer.
Thank you.
Curiosity.
Any additional questions for staff? Okay, we're going to move to the public comment portion of the hearing. Is there anybody in the public who wishes to speak for or against this project? Is there anybody? Seeing none, we'll close public comment and move to staff closing comments. Do you have any additional information?
No, I have no additional information for you.
Very good. Applicant's rebuttal.
No more information.
Thank you very much. We'll close the public hearing and open it up for deliberation. Are there any, or a motion either?
I'll make the motion,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Rhodes.
Okay. I move to recommend the approval of ordinance 15-14 per the recommended motion in the staff report attached to this agenda.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Rhodes, second by Mr. Horrigan. And for clarity, that was item number 5 only. So,
That's right, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Ordinance 15-14, FKA 14-45, Robinson Gateway DRI number 29.
thank you very much, sir.
Second.
That includes the additional language that was submitted with the agenda update memorandum.
Mr. Rhodes, is that
That is correct.
correct?
Thank you.
The motion's
Yes.
been amended. The
Yes,
second
second.
is accepted. Okay, thank you very much. I'll call it to a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, passes unanimously. Now we have the matter number 6 to consider.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Rhodes.
I'll make a motion to approve PDMU 15-04, FKA PDMU 13-01, Para Z, Para G, Robinson Gateway. I move to recommend the approval of the PDW-0101, Parent P, Parent R, per the recommended motion in the staff report attached to the agenda memo.
Thank you, Mr. Rhodes. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. DeLesline makes the second. I'll call the motion for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Chair votes aye, passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Thank you. We're going to move to the last item on the agenda, item number 7. Mr. Meyer, would you please read this into the record?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Item number 7 is Resolution R-15-029. It's a Public Works Standards Manual. This is legislative, and it's based on the staff report, and I'll leave it at that.
Thank you for the abbreviated entry into the record. Mr. Osborne.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. John Osborne, I'm the planning official. Before you today is the Public Works Engineering Standards Manual update. We're doing some changes, as we spoke about previously, to our land development regulations. And this goes back actually to 2009. We actually had an overall study done by our management of our land development review process. It was called the Matrix Study. And the Matrix Study made several recommendations of how we can improve the efficiency of our land development review process, our zoning operations, and things like that. And one of the recommendations they made was that the Land Development Code should be comprehensively updated, reorganized, and illustrated. And so we're starting that process for you as well with the rewrite of the Land Development Code, and which also affects the other land development regulations, which include the comprehensive plan and the Public Works Engineering Standards manuals. We're moving forward with some changes to the overall land development regulations, but if you recall, it became a really big bite of the apple. It was a really big pill to swallow for the amount of changes we were proposing. So we took some steps backwards, and last year we sat y'all down for a few days with the Board of County Commissioners in April 2014, and we went through a new draft of the Land Development Code that was much more just reorganizational and with some minor changes, more consistent with some of the matrix study recommendations. But we wanted to take it more in a step-by-step fashion so we don't overwhelm the public, overwhelm the Board Planning Commission with fully understanding what the changes we're proposing. So today we're bringing forward just some changes which will affect the Land Development Code and the Public Works manuals. And there's some things in the Land Development Code that are very engineering specific. And sometimes even for our own staff and also those in the consultant engineering community, we need to make sure that the engineering standards are in the same location and also updated, consistent as standards and things update and change. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Tom Gerstenberger. And Tom is, as you know him very well, he's our Stormwater Engineering Division Manager, and he's going to have a presentation for you on some of these changes.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John. If we could go ahead and have that presentation brought up, please. And I'll try to run through this pretty quickly. If there are any specific questions, I would ask that we just bring them up at the end. First off, the Public Works Standards Manual is comprised of 3 parts. Part 1 will be the Utility Standards Manual, Part 2, the Stormwater Management Design Manual, and Part 3, the Highway and Traffic Standards Manual. Brief overview and example. I will utilize Part 2 concerning my interest in stormwater, obviously. The Stormwater Management Design Manual, provide an example and give an overview of the migration of language from the Land Development Code into Phase 1 of the standards. Come on. There we go. First phase. Diagram gives you a good representation of the migration between the Land Development Code, those particular sections that are applicable for stormwater floodplain sections, into the Stormwater Design Manual. What Phase 1 is and what Phase 1 is not. I'll start on the left. Phase 1 is the migration of existing sections of the Land Development Code into the Public Works Standards. They're incorporated into Phase 1 is corrections, modernization of references, whether it be statute, Florida Administrative Code, and department references. In addition, organization of existing language and migrated language. What Phase 1 is not. Phase 1 is not wholesale revision or modification to existing language or to migrated language. Phase 1 is not addition or deletion language in existing standards. And Phase 1 is not creation of new requirements. Now I'll give an example of the language migration. This happens to be straight out of the Land Development Code resource, which is Municode. So this is basically going online, looking at Municode, and pulling a particular section of code, requirements in this case for streets, as far as elevation requirements, things of that sort. So basically, this is a cut and paste exercise where we're taking out of existing Land Development Code, going through organization, obviously, as far as changing the section references, things of that sort, into that language, and then creating that language into the Public Works Standards for Phase 1. This happens to be the migration spreadsheet for the Stormwater Design Manual, those particular sections of the Land Development Code applicable for stormwater and floodplain that are being migrated out of the Land Development Code and placed into the Stormwater Design Manual. Oops. Overview of the particular sections of the Land Development Code that are being pulled into the Stormwater Manual. They are listed below. The hydraulic requirements from section 717.3, ownership and maintenance 717.5, project design criteria from 717.3.13.2, and stormwater management plan requirements from 717.4. What is next? Today we are dealing with on the agenda for the Planning Commission, there will be 2 additional hearings through the County Commission to adopt Phase 1 standards. Concurrently with the second County Commission hearing will be repeal of redundant sections of the Land Development Code vis-a-vis repeal and replace. Phase 2 of the Stormwater Manual will take a look at low impact design, watershed studies, incorporation of stipulation language into standards, and to revisit miscellaneous design requirements, whether it be finished floor elevation, easements, and other design practices. I will now go to an overview for the Utility Standards Manual. For the Utility Standards Manual, the migrated language is in the first couple pages of the utility standards. They incorporate the water section from the LDC, section 722.1.8.2, sanitary sewer 722.1.8.1, irrigation 722.1.8.3, and the solid waste regulations from section 728. For the Highway and Traffic Standards Manual, I'll give a brief overview as well. The language that's being taken out of the Land Development Code, there are specific sections with respect to roadways for limited access on major thoroughfares. Actually, Sarah was talking about that earlier with respect to University Parkway. Right-of-way width and street design standards from section 722.1.8.1, private streets from section 740, and visibility triangles from section 713. In addition, there are miscellaneous sections regarding traffic control devices, fire lane markings, driveways, sidewalks, and parking. And at this time, I'll be happy to address any questions that the commission may have.
Mr. Gerstenberger.
Yes.
Just to be clear, the process we're currently going through, we've got 4 separate documents, the Land Development Code and the 3 technical manuals, which stand as separate documents. So what we're doing is we're migrating, as the word you used, information in between them, but we're not changing the requirements. We're just reformatting the documents. Is that correct?
That is correct. It is, to put it in simplistic terms, it's cutting that language out of the Land Development Code and pasting it into the particular sections of the Public Works standards.
Right, and then correcting the reference where it might be in a new manual, that reference has to be. So we're taking
Right.
technical data out of the LDC and putting it in the technical manual, hence the name. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay,
sir.
so the form is changing, but the function will be the same. And we mentioned Phase 2. Phase 2 is when the function of those things would begin to change, and there's going to be additional public hearings, input from both users, the professionals who may use this, and the public. Is that correct?
That is correct,
And
Chairman.
we're not
Yes.
considering any of those changes right now. It's just the form of the documents.
Mr. Chairman, that is correct. Phase 1 is simply the cut and paste operation. There is no other modifications other than those that were noted as far as statute, Florida Administrative Code, department references, things of that sort. There is no other holistic modifications made to that list, to that language.
Okay, as a representative of the engineers in the community. Thank you. Mr. Rhodes.
Maybe your thank you answered my question because I don't get involved with them that much. I know this is a lot of work to go through into all this, so congratulations to you and the group. But the reasoning behind doing all this was, what was the reason, the impetus behind here? Similar to what he thanked you for, from a user's perspective?
I think, John, you can probably chime in some as well. It's a combination of, as far as having the technical data and the standards instead of having it in the land development code. We've had a lot of discussions on the past. I can think in particular of like the street requirements where they end up being specific approvals, things like that, that have to go through the public hearing process. We're looking at those requirements. That'll be in phase 2 and phase 3 to revisit those specific requirements. As far as taking that language out of code, things of that sort, it is also that to make any modification to those standards today, we have to go through a land development code amendment. If those specific standards change over time, which they do, Chris Mowbray's here as well. He's representing for the interest for utilities and highway. But as far as like utility specifications and requirements is driven by what's available actually from distributors as well. So if there's any specific language in the land development code that requires X, Y, Z, but only A, B, C is available, then today that has to go back through this public hearing process for a land development code amendment.
Okay.
And I'll let John elaborate further.
John Osborne, planning official, and Tom's correct. One of the issues that we also have is just for the ease and efficiency of doing business, whether it be the consulting engineering community doing design work for their own projects, the private sector, but also as a county, you got to remember we have our own engineers, Chris and Tom. They also do design work for us, and we need the information and the regulations in one logical place. And fortunately these days, yeah, we have Acrobat, we can search words and things like that and make sure we try to hit all the bases, but they really need to be consolidated into one base. Just like the Matrix study report said, the like subject matter needs to be with a like subject matter, because sometimes people think we're trying to pull a gotcha on about, oh, this other book said this, and here's one little odd sentence in here that has this other requirement about something that really, and 90% of that is in another book. That kind of stuff, it gives us a bad rap, quite honestly, from a lot of our customers and even our own staff sometimes. So it's just logical that we have our operations and the instructions of how to do things, what we expect from the engineering community, for our own engineers as well, to be in a logical place in the county.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good job.
Thank you, Mr. Rhodes. Mr. Osborne, in the past, I know I've heard Mr. Schmidt say it, that why do we have that stipulation? It's required by the code. I think what we're doing, instead of making conditions as stipulations or requirements for approval, you can simply say in accordance with the stormwater manual or in accordance with the utility manual, and you cover a much broader series of concerns other than just one thing that might be like related to the coastal high hazard process that you have to go through, something like that. So I see this process as facilitating that. Was that part of the intent, is to make it more in compliance with the county documents?
That is correct. Make it more compliance with the goals and objectives and policies of the comp plan as well, but also just having the like subject matter in one place for ease of reference is really the biggest thing. Right. When it comes to stipulations, if you see some of the older development orders that were approved during the previous boom years, you'll see tons of stipulations that are right out of the land development code. And sometimes those were put in place just as a reminder that we already cover these things. And so a lot of those was for that, and also for the public too, that, oh, we cover this, this, and this. Yeah, they're in the code, and this is exactly what it says in the code, but it just helped everybody remember that we are covering those bases.
Thank you. Mr. Horgan.
Yeah, I'd like to make a comment. I think that in addition to making it easier for the customers and the staff, it's also a real benefit to our first customer, which is the public, because they can go and find it, and they can read all the way through it, and they can see that there isn't something hidden somewhere else that they missed, and so it's going to make it easier for people who are legitimately trying to do their due diligence before they come here.
And that's correct. And a lot of it's not just the big home builders, the big shopping center developers. It's the small business owner looking to expand sometimes, who all of a sudden you didn't do this in your site plan or whatever, and it's a big gotcha, and that's not our intent. It's just you got to make sure you go through all the documents, and having it in one logical place just makes sense.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Rutledge?
And is this part of a plan to detail, quantify, and organize so that in the future, I think the development business is changing daily. Part of it's technology, part of it's change in intellectual thinking. The green world is coming. And so is this part of setting it up so that we can manipulate those areas that are incorrect as time passes and be specific about those and not tie us into a master toolbox where you have to go through every single tool to see if that's the one you want? I mean, mechanically, isn't this going to give us some flexibility to do that?
Yes and no. We'll make amendments slightly easier. For example, taking my land development code and putting it in the engineering standards manual, we amend things by resolution. For example, the Florida Department of Transportation regularly updates their engineering standards and specifications that some of our references to these things are probably 3, 4, 5, 10 versions ago. So to get your DOT permit, though, you better be using their latest regulation and not the one we specify. So there's some things like that we need to be more, have some word it in such a way that they use the latest, specifically for like the state reference design spec. But in the future, in terms of more flexibility, having a land development code that's more consistent with market trends and conditions, that is a future conversation and a future phase of the code rewrite, absolutely, because our code really reflects 1970s and 1980s thinking. And that's why everything is a plan development, and that's why every project has a dozen special approvals requested, because our code is just not kept up to today's market trends.
So that'll be the function portion, which is phase 2, not the form.
Understood. But this puts us in a condition that will make that possible as well, correct?
It sets us up, these organizational changes we're making step by step, sets us up in a way where it'll just be easy for everybody to understand the changes we're making step by step. And eventually, that is a conversation we are going to have.
Because lighting is one of the other big things. If you're not contemporary in your lighting, you change the standards because the product's different.
Correct.
You don't have to go through because I'm changing the light bulbs in the shopping center, might happen, and all of a sudden you got to go change your PUD, right?
And lighting's a great example. The technology of lighting has changed so much in 10 years that our standards really don't reflect that well.
Reflect that. Funny.
Yeah, look at that.
Thank you, Mr. Rutledge. Ms. Shank, this isn't a quasi-judicial hearing. Is it still open to the public for public comment?
Yes, it is. Public hearing.
All right. Are there any additional questions for staff? If not, we're going to go to the public comment portion of the hearing. Okay. Is there anybody in the public who wishes to speak for or against item number 7? Is there anybody in the public? Yes, sir. If you would, please come up to the podium, state your name, and if you've been sworn.
No, I have not been sworn.
Oh, great. There's always one. Okay. I amend my statement. You don't have to state that you've been sworn.
Okay. My name is Ronald Walski. I'm a student at the University of Florida. Taking geomatics as a program. I'm in favor of this because it sounds more user-friendly. Mm-hmm. If I want to look at something specific, I can look at my guidelines. I don't have to go through the whole project just to look at my specific part of the guidelines. So I'm in favor of it.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for the comments. Mr. Rutledge.
What is it? What's geometric?
Surveyor.
Oh, yeah. I write that down. Smarter. Thanks.
Are there any additional public comments? Seeing none, we'll close that portion of the hearing. Is there any discussion, follow-up questions?
I'll make a motion, though.
Chair will entertain a motion.
All right. I make a motion that Resolution R15-29, Public Works Standard Manual. I move to recommend the approval of Resolution R15-029 per the recommended motion in the staff report attached to the agenda memo.
Thank you, Mr. Rhodes.
Second.
Second by Mr. DeLesline. Are there any additional comments? Call the matter to vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Vote, chair votes aye, carries unanimous, 5-0. Thank you. With that, we'll close the meeting and.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair?
Yes, ma'am.
Something just occurred to me, just for the clerk's benefit. I was looking on your cheat sheet, and I heard it wrong, but I have to just clarify the motion made. I think it was Mr. Rhodes on item number 6, regarding the zoning ordinance Robinson Gateway. He was reading off the cheat sheet, but the wrong ordinance number is there. So, just for the record, I just want to state a scrivener's correction to the motion number 6.
Do we need to bring that matter up as a vote? Or since it's, we haven't closed the public hearing, well, we did close the public hearing.
Okay, I recommend you reopen the public hearing on PDMU 1504 Robinson Gateway.
So we'll open up we'll reopen.
Reopen it for the motion clarification?
Yes, I'll have to clarify the motion. Okay, at the time the motion was made, it read, I move to recommend the approval of PDW 0101PR as per the recommended motion, the staff report attached to the agenda memo, and the incorrect ordinance number is referenced, and the scrivener's correction to the zoning ordinance motion would be, I move to recommend the approval of PDMU 1504ZG, FKA 1301ZG, per the recommended motion, the staff report attached to this agenda memo.
Okay, so we're going to reopen the public hearing.
And perhaps you could pass that corrected motion just for the record, since I caught it.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. We're going to reopen the public hearing for item number 6. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, for item number 6, we're reopening the public hearing. And Mr. Rhodes, you have something you'd like to say?
I would just say, did I move to amend my motion?
Okay.
If you start with that.
I'll move to amend my motion, okay, on agenda item number 6.
To reflect the scrivener's correction read into the record by Ms. Shank.
Okay. To reflect the correction as stated by Mrs. Shank. Ms. Shank.
Thank you.
Okay.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. DeLesline. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. We're going to close the public hearing. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sarah.
I think that
There's always a thank you to you.
I think that concludes our business here today. Just like to remind the commissioners, at least the remaining commissioners that are here, we'll have a work session next month, and we're going to talk about process. I believe there was a lot of discussion regarding process. So Mr. Osborne's going to prepare some things that will solicit some dialogue regarding process. Mr. Rutledge.
Just if in the notifications, if it could be somewhat highlighted or somewhere, because I missed it, I apologize for all of you not being here. I was available and I just didn't notice it. So if somehow I could see that, it'd be helpful.
I will talk to staff and make sure it's prominently displayed on the
My fault.
agenda.
I'm not
No,
trying
it was, you had to look hard for it. I had to look for it, and I knew it was there, so we'll
Mr.
we'll
Meyer,
make sure we'll do that.
I don't recall our events sent out, calendar events. I don't recall if Planning Commission, if they were sent out, if it's just something that we typically put on our calendar. I've got 3 different calendars. Unlike Hillary Clinton, I use many devices. So.
Oh, when you said you were like
Gonna
Hillary
get in
Clinton, I
trouble.
lost my train of thought there for a second.
So that may be an option too. If meeting, if there were a calendar event sent out, they could be amended to include a work session prior to the hearing.
I will talk to Ms. Roy and make sure we do a much better job of notifying commissioners.
Quick email will help.
Robin and Mr. Osborne, I'm not going to be here next time. I'm going to be in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean at that moment.
In a boat, I hope.
On a boat.
Maybe.
And so I'd really like to figure out a way to get some of the information that you're going to present. You could
record it.
Send it to me, or some way to get a recording of it or whatever, so that I could have it prior to my next meeting.
We'll make that happen.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Very much. With that, we're going to close the meeting. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Oh, very good.